All 7 billion people in this world were thrown into another world. And after becoming a lord, everyone receives a special talent. Some get development-type talents like Shenong, so their territory's agriculture improves greatly. Some get druid, fairy, and the probability of recruiting otherworldly races like sprites gets massively multiplied. Others get combat-type talents like deadline, so his eyes can see through an enemy's fatal weaknesses. Even gods can be slain with a single strike. Although your talent isn't that powerful, everyone is willing to pledge loyalty and submit to you. Your talent is a gold special type talent called golden ratio. The effect is the lord who possesses this talent will have immense charisma. In short, they'll be rich. Rich, extremely rich. Your superpowers will be numerous enough to do whatever you want. And because the better your house is built, the stronger the summoned subjects will be. So you use your golden ratio, the top-tier luck talent, to gather a lot of premium materials. You built a stone cave cottage. As expected, the system rated it as an excellent building. So you clicked in the cottage interface in the system and decisively ordered to summon subjects to kill traitors. A swirling vortex of light appears from each building on both sides. The vortex in the excellent grade cottage shimmers with a gentle green light. Looking closely, it's shifting among pale green, regular green, emerald green, dark green, and even hues with bluish edges. In the ordinary grade cottage, the vortex glows, with white as its color. There are distinct shades of gray-white, pure white, and bright white. Finally, the vortex in the excellent grade cottage settles on a green with a faint blue edge. The vortex in the ordinary grade cottage settles on standard white. The subjects you've been eagerly awaiting slowly walk out from the gates of light of the vortex. Inside the excellent grade cottage, the first to step out is an ancient Eastern warrior wearing damaged armor, carrying a long blade. Maybe an officer. Since so much of his body is covered in armor, he's not likely to be a regular soldier. On his body, there's a strong aura like he just came from a bloody battlefield, along with the smell of blood. Blood still drips from his long blade. Beside him are 3 panic-stricken women and children. One with graying hair, one about 30 years old, and a girl perhaps about 10, her face still showing a terrified expression. It's a family fleeing for their lives. The badly armored warrior sees you, visibly excited, bowing deeply in reverence like offering treasures. Guo Wushang, a remaining soldier of the Forbidden's army of Great Zhou, greets the Lord while you're still confused. The women and children behind Guo Wushang also kneel to the ground. Every family member pays respect to the Lord, thanking you for saving their lives and similar words. Until you read the biographies of these people, Guo Wushang, a member of the late Zhou Forbidden's army in the end of the era, retired Guo Wushang, was ambushed while taking his family back to his hometown, and suffered a violent attack. This was the family's most dangerous moment. Then the system arrived, and sent out a summons to them. As long as they pledged loyalty to you, they could escape with their whole family. Guo Wushang agreed, and the crisis was thoroughly eliminated. Even the best assassins and drivers could never kill him again. Even Zhao De, who became emperor, no longer had any authority over him. His family now had hope to survive. How could they not be overwhelmed with emotions and feel immense gratitude toward you? In the other cottage, there was also a family from the other world that couldn't survive. They weren't from the 5 Dynasties era, but from a parallel world similar to ancient East Asia. This family did not have a member as skilled in both culture and war as Guo Wushang. They were ordinary victims of natural disasters unable to survive. Just as a flood was about to engulf their whole family, their desperate plea for help answered the system's summon and saved them from imminent destruction. The wisdom provided by the system is really not concocted by the system or fate, not made up out of thin air, but with actual will of their own, real beings with life experience. They just come from other worlds. You reaffirmed this. Could it be that many stories of transmigrators originated this way? Also confirmed his previous theory. Buildings like cottages, the better their quality, The higher the system rating, the more outstanding the summoned prize is, the better the subjects. But this way, as living beings, with their own thoughts and wills, these subjects will inevitably possess normal human nature. Can their loyalty really be guaranteed? Will they stab you in the back? Human nature is the hardest thing to predict. Repaying kindness with betrayal, or greed beyond measure, the history is full of such things. There have always been plenty of lessons. You feel a bit hesitant. As if sensing his thoughts, the system's relevant feedback instantly appeared in his mind. According to the system, in general, the subject's loyalty isn't something to worry about. The system's powers are just too overwhelming, moving the subjects directly from one world to another world, a totally supernatural act, enough to make the summoned subjects feel an enormous sense of awe. The process of summoning subjects is also when the system signs a contract with them. Under the system's incredible power, the contract is enforced by the rules, setting the basic principle not to harm the Lord. Even if they have weapons, they can't attack the Lord. Instead, the Lord holds full power of life and death over subjects. If a subject is convicted, the system can enforce punishment directly. Besides, the other world offers vast opportunities for development. The Lord's power is just beginning to grow. Compared to the rigid hierarchy of their original world, their society isn't locked in. There aren't interest groups monopolizing power. The future is full of hope. Why bother going against the Lord? If the subjects do show human evil, how to handle it is a test of the Lord's capabilities and character. A part of civilization's evolution. The system also warns, subjects cannot harm the Lord who possesses the system, who is also protected by the system, and enjoys extraordinary human rights. If the Lord exploits subjects excessively, or even disregards their lives, and acts against nature, provoking public outrage, once it reaches a certain level, the Lord will receive a loss of virtue debuff. After receiving this debuff, the Lord will gradually lose the right to use the system and the authority to punish subjects. If it gets bad enough, the system may even let the subjects rebel. Times of revolution and chaos, with no desire for evil kings. After all, the will of fate always exists. The purpose of throwing 7 billion people from Earth into an otherworldly realm is to subject them to a trial of civilization, to drive civilizational development, and to explore the limits of humanity. Those who only focus on enslaving their subjects and enjoying exploitation are like parasites making no contribution, sucking blood from the body of civilization. What use is such trash? Having understood these circumstances, you have effectively grasped the current state of affairs. You also felt a sense of relief in your heart. As long as you don't incur any morality debuff, you don't need to worry that the subjects who are constrained by the system will act against you. Your sense of security has returned. He confidently believed he would not become a tyrant. After resolving a major concern, he let the two families of subjects get to know each other and provided food to fill their bellies. You formally established your identity as the Lord and Master. In any case, it's just a title. Immediately after, he assigned specific duties to these subjects. Time was of the essence. He could not afford to keep idle people. Guo Wushang was skilled in both letters and arms, but what is currently needed is his combat prowess, armor, and weaponry. He will serve as quintuple the strength for the territory's early stages, guarding against external dangers and protecting the others. If he has free time during the day, it's best he works part-time as a hunter. Hunting prey can not only enrich the resource encyclopedia, but also improve everyone's meals. Guo Wusheng's wife and mother came from good backgrounds. They had received traditional education for brides in ancient times. Besides traditional wifely duties, they also possessed skills in weaving, embroidery, and needlework, as well as culinary skills for preparing soups and meals. You stated that you would focus on acquiring resources like silkworms, mulberry, cotton, and hemp. They could first research the relevant technologies required for textile work, so they could utilize their skills once the resources were in place, adding a technological advantage to the territory. Incidentally, These two could also take charge of the territory's kitchen. The other family of virtuous subjects were all farmers, so they would be responsible for agricultural matters. Seeds for crops like rice and wheat will be included in the search plan. Before finding suitable crops to cultivate, they can first try foraging and fishing nearby, helping Guo Wusheng with hunting, to further resolve the food issues within the territory. As for the only child in the territory, Guo Wusheng's 10-year-old daughter, Bobo, you waved your hand and let her follow her family, leaving her family to arrange things for her. Regarding these deployments, the new subjects had no objections. By now, the sky had turned completely dark. The outside world would not be peaceful. Feeling that you were a good master who cared for his subjects, you did not immediately put the two families to work. Instead, you let them return to their respective rooms for a good rest, so they could begin their assigned tasks, starting tomorrow. In passing, you instructed everyone to close their doors and windows tightly, warning them to be careful of the dangers that might roam at night. The crowd also understood the perils of this savage world. After signaling their leave to you, they returned to their rooms one after another. The roars of beasts echoed through the strange, dense forest. The ferocity contained within those roars was far more than the harmless herbivores of the day. It was much more terrifying. But thinking of the fertile soil everywhere, the abundant food, and their generous and heroic master, the two families of new subjects were not afraid. Instead, after returning to their rooms, they thanked the heavens for their blessings. You, however, were not as optimistic and relaxed as the subjects. There were a full 7 billion humans from Earth in this other world, but the cries for help from the unfortunate ones on the World Channel last night, and the horrors they encountered, made one toss and turn. Once the protection period ends, he will have to face the entire wild environment alone. Savage beasts, dangerous barbarians, and even other known and unknown entities, such as evil gods. Who knows what the future holds? This uncertainty makes one feel like they're sitting on pins and needles. How could one sleep soundly? The remaining 14 days must be utilized as much as possible to strengthen their own power. With such thoughts, you completely abandoned your peacetime habits. You got out of bed early, opened the stone door, and intended to urge the subjects to work hard, only to find that the Guo and Ling families had already been up and working for a long time. Guo Wusheng was not wearing full armor. He only kept the plates on his vital areas. He had gone to the nearby woods early in the morning to scout the situation, set up hunting traps, and even brought back an animal that looked like a mountain goat. After handing the prey over to his family to process, he went to the riverside to observe, wondering if the waters were safe and how to catch some fish. Although Guo's wife and mother came from good backgrounds and were female family members of a wealthy household, they were people who had struggled to survive in troubled times. They had seen many dead people, so they weren't afraid of dead animals, nor were they afraid of blood at all. They carefully processed the catch Guo Wusheng brought back, picking out the pelts, horns, and choice bits. These could serve as raw materials for making items, such as animal skin clothing and the like. The edible parts, like meat and internal organs, were carefully categorized and cleaned, then placed on clean, broad leaves, awaiting your distribution, master. Animal bones are good things. Besides being used for soup, in the current situation where tools are scarce, they can also be ground into bone needles and other items. Animal blood can also be made into food. It cannot be wasted. They kept that as well. This occupied one of the only 2 pots in the territory. Speaking of these 2 pots, for your small territory, they were considered precious assets at the moment. When the Guo family encountered bandits, the 2 adult women, to protect themselves and the child, had grabbed the pots from their luggage to use as shields. As it turned out, they were transported here by accident, and these 2 pots they brought along solved a major problem for the territory: how to eat hot food, and especially how to have hot water. This was no small issue. It was a major matter. Currently, there is no tap water or purified water available. In the water supplied by nature, There are large amounts of bacteria, viruses, and even parasites. Drinking it directly makes one prone to illness. Only by boiling raw water can the chance of getting sick be significantly reduced. Furthermore, having a pot to boil water means it can be used for bathing, which can also prevent many diseases. The 2 pots the Guo family brought directly contributed to the hygiene efforts of the territory. At this moment, one of them was filled with animal blood by the 2 women of the Guo family, while the other was hanging over the fire pit in the stone cave dwelling. The 10-year-old daughter of the Guo family wasn't idle either. Under her mother's direction, the young girl was boiling water with this pot. Right now, she was salivating as she waited for the meat to be put into the pot. Compared to the relatively well-off Guo family, the Ling family was much more destitute. The whole family had nearly drowned in a flood and hadn't brought a single possession with them. At this time, the Ling family, Liang Shan, the head of the household, felt a strong sense of urgency. Early in the morning, he brought his 2 sons and started working near the shelter. They gathered wild fruits and vegetables, picked up firewood, and collected vines while familiarizing themselves with the terrain, planning how to reclaim land in the future, and thinking about farming. Liang Shan's wife, a thin, wiry woman, knew some basic weaving skills. She brought back the 2 fathers and 3 sons. Once the fruits and vegetables were prepared, she delivered them to the Guo family. Just like with meat, she waited for your distribution. As for the vines, she sorted them out, put the unsuitable ones outside the door, dried them for firewood. The ones suitable for weaving slowly turned into rough baskets in her hands, and containers like vine baskets. These settlers are even better adapted to survival in the wild than modern humans from Blue Star. They are more used to a wilderness survival lifestyle. Years of hardship have already tempered them into resilient workers and taught them the wisdom to survive. You thought you'd have to push your settlers to work, but realized you were actually the least industrious one. It was a bit awkward, but also touching. You took a system screenshot and uploaded it to the World Channel. Feeling a bit emotional, you said, "I used to think that in our current situation, I was already working hard enough. But seeing how motivated everyone is, I realized my effort was nothing. This is really not about showing off. I was genuinely moved." Li Ming and the others' diligence and orderliness made him really proud. Unfortunately, most people in the channel didn't care about his feelings at all. Their focus was nowhere near his emotions. Damn, what did I just see? Is that a pot? A metal pot, an actual pot. Damn, that little girl is boiling water. I'm about to cry. How come this guy already has something this amazing at this stage? Calling it amazing is an exaggeration. Isn't it just 2 pots? You don't understand at all. Wait, are you just drinking raw water straight? Can't beginners drink it? Hey, you can drink it now because there's beginner protection. Try drinking it after the protection period ends. Now, the beginner sounds a bit scared, so what happens with it? If nothing unexpected happens, you'll probably have diarrhea until you die. Raw water is full of bacteria and viruses. Parasites can easily make you sick. This world we're in now is also very different from Blue Star. Chances of getting sick from drinking raw water are even higher. And in our current situation, without modern medical support, getting sick basically equals death. You really didn't know that. I feel kind of bad for you. Is this guy actually a kid? No way, kids who can live independently are all placed by the system with suitable guardians. Those without family are put with responsible and willing foster candidates. He can't be a kid. He probably just lacks basic knowledge about this. The chat instantly exploded, but all the discussion was about 2 pots. You felt like flirting with a blind guy, and still got tons of private messages, mostly from friends. Can I borrow a pot? Are you selling? No way, not for sale. The heated discussions about pots are really a direct reflection of Blue Star people struggling to survive and a serious lack of resources. A pot may look simple, but before modern times it was basically high-tech. It required mining, smelting, casting, and other technologies. trying to develop that tech. Without a lot of technological buildup and social division of labor, forget it. To give you an example, in ancient Waxia, nomads and southwestern tribes, even in the western regions, many places, couldn't solve the pot-making problem for 1,000 years. They had to buy from the central plains. Even in Waxia, it wasn't until about the Song dynasty that the technology advanced to iron pots. That's how rare it was. In our current situation, maybe we could make some stone pots or something like that, just to get by. Metal pots are absolutely impossible for now. Answered several private messages. Pots are only for loan, not for sale. But with so many people asking, you impatiently leave the chat. Then you start daydreaming. The whole Guo Wushang family summoned by the SSS-Grade house aren't just talented themselves. They're basically the SSR of green tags, and come with their own gear and backup talent 2 big pots, which right now are basically strategic items. If he builds more houses of this quality and summons more top-tier settlers, would they also bring rare treasures to enrich his territory? But after calming down, he quickly realized he was facing a roadblock decision. If he chases more excellent grade houses and summons higher quality settlers, the raw material cost would go way up in both variety and quantity. A lot more raw resources would need to be acquired through the system, or trading with other chosen. Time and effort consumed would be enormous, and depend a lot on others' supply efficiency. So it's clear that taking the elite route would give his settlers a better average quality, a much higher starting point.
He might get his hands on rare,
almost strategic materials. But the downside, it's really slow to grow the population, which would make the civilization in his territory get capped by population size. To unlock many new structures shown in the building encyclopedia, you need a minimal population. For example, once the shelter and houses are built, you unlock new structures like the lumber mill. It lets you get way more wood resources and has basic wood processing.
It's
a building that can really boost territorial productivity. But to build it, your total number of settlers must be over 100, with at least 20 working age set to work there. Otherwise, it can't be done. In the end, he chose the route of quickly boosting his territory's population. That is, using the resources already around the shelter to build a lot of regular houses and summoning many ordinary settler households like the 4-member families to quickly reach a certain scale. After all, only with a large population can you build real social division of labor and collective wealth and power from mass production to drive rapid civilization development. Right now, what he lacks most is development time. With his mind made up, he stopped hesitating. He called out to Guo Wushang, told him to get ready, bring weapons, and come with him to collect local resources. Guo Wushang didn't question it. He immediately went home, put on a chest plate, and then picked up his long sword and came to your side. Fulfilling his duty as a bodyguard, you didn't dare dodge either. He has novice protection, it's true, but in certain situations, novice protection only helps prevent death. It doesn't help block other forms of damage. Like last night, there was a girl with a Western name, crying for help on the World Channel. She didn't finish her shelter in time, and happened to be within a barbarian patrol range. As a result, she was dragged to a barbarian camp and was collectively exploited. Right now, she's imprisoned in the barbarian camp as a slave. If she can't escape within the next 14 days, her ending will likely be grim. She either be killed by the barbarians or forced to become the mother of little barbarians.
Even worse was a certain black guy
who was also captured by a group of barbarians. He also became a slave, but he took a blade down below. Despite the extremely poor sanitary conditions, the system kept him alive, but he felt he'd be better off dead. Such tragedies force you to take heed. The true way of survival is to keep a low profile. Only by preserving your roots can you have a future. Guo Wushang didn't know what his lord was worrying about. He just loyally guarded his side. Then he watched as you used the system to decompose trees, rocks, and other objects. He was shocked the whole way. Although he's a fifth generation, and a rare, honest, and loyal man from those chaotic years back home, he was convinced you had saved his whole family, and was incredibly grateful. Having experienced the system summoning, he knew your methods were supernatural, and felt deep awe. But the way you effortlessly performed these divine feats along the way was truly mind-blowing. In Guo Wushang's eyes, you became a living deity, erasing any hint of disloyalty. This was an unexpected harvest you hadn't anticipated. The harvest that truly surprised him, however, was the golden ratio from the Lord talent. It's a mysterious power that makes the owner's financial luck slightly stronger. The kind where you can find gold just by walking. Since Lord Luo himself came out to gather resources, how could there be no gain? Lord Luo was tripped by a certain rock. After stabilizing himself with Guo Wushang's help, he noticed that after the mud was rubbed off the rock's surface, it revealed glints of gold. Curious, he immediately brushed away the dirt to take a look. This look was no small matter. It was a piece of ore shaped like a gold nugget, yet it emitted a purple glow during appraisal, a special mineral. Earthfire dark gold, the essence of the earth refined for eons by epic earthfire. Adding just a tiny amount during forging is enough to strengthen any metal, giving it superior performance. It also has an interesting property. When fully submerged underwater, it generates a powerful underwater fire that can melt any metal. It is a rare forging material, and also a rare forging fire. Master, is it gold? As a subject, when Guo Wushang signed the contract with the system, he received the system's blessing, granting him convenience in language and writing, but it was limited to that. He didn't have the comprehensive system abilities like you did, so he naturally didn't know the uniqueness of the mineral. He was just dazzled by the glittering appearance of the earthfire dark gold. Looking at the football-sized earthfire dark gold being dug out, you rubbed your hands. It's not gold, but it's much more precious. I didn't expect that. Just by stepping out, I find something so incredible. Adding it to strengthen metals requires the territory to develop considerable forging technology before it can be used as a raw material. But if it's truly as the description says, that it can turn into an underwater fire to melt all metals, then that's extraordinary. It means that smelting and forging, which originally needed to be developed step by step, now have the possibility of leapfrog development. How could ordinary gold compare to this? You didn't blame him for his lack of knowledge. After all, the subjects had only been in the other world for a short time, and they didn't have a system like you. They still thought that except for the strange-looking plants and animals, this place wasn't much different from their original world. They'll get used to it once they see more. With a wave of your hand, you put the earthfire dark gold into the Lord's personal space. All right, we've gathered enough resources for this trip. Let's go back and have breakfast. Later, I'll make a tool to show you the wonders of this gold. Understood. Although Guo Wushang was incredibly curious, he knew his place. He continued to guard your side with his blade, suppressing his various questions. Back at the shelter, the women of the Guo family had already stewed meat soup, grilled some meat, and prepared some washed fruits, laid out on clean, broad leaves. The Ling family had cut some bamboo-like plants, using the segments of the stalks as cups and bowls, and the branches to make chopsticks, to serve as personal dining utensils. Yet no one ate first. They were waiting for the two to return to start the meal. You could understand. This etiquette was also necessary. Order and systems are the formal expressions of the contract where subjects show obedience in exchange for protection. Of course, conditions are crude right now, so everything is simplified. It's enough for him to receive the subject's intentions. In specific work and life, putting on airs would just be stupid. Moreover, he came from a modern society and didn't place much importance on this set of ancient logic for maintaining order. All right, don't just stand there. Situations are special. Let's all eat together. There's a lot to do after we eat. Thank you, Lord. Guo Wushang led the thanks. Then, the wife of the Guo family stood up and used a crude bamboo spoon to serve meat chunks and soup into everyone's bamboo bowls. An amusing thing happened then. In times of material scarcity, fatty meat represented nutrition and was recognized as a delicacy and the best food. Whether it was the Guo family or the Liang family, they all came from such a period. Naturally, the piece first served to a certain lord was a large, glistening piece of fatty meat. Unfortunately, you had just arrived from modern society to this primitive otherworld. In just over a day, many habits of modern society hadn't been significantly impacted yet and were still preserved. Seeing this kind of boiled fatty meat, your head spun, let alone eating it. You hastily requested to swap it for some finely sliced lean meat, giving the fatty meat to Guo Wushang instead. Surprisingly, this was seen by the subjects as being considerate to subordinates, as if you were sharing your own food with others. It truly left him between laughter and tears. However, this meal also led him to discover an unexpected resource: salt beech fruit. This is a special plant that grows on saline alkali flats. It can absorb salt from the soil and grow extremely salty fruits, which can be used as a salt substitute for seasoning. He hadn't really walked through the saline alkali land before. He instinctively thought there weren't any resources there. So he actually missed out on the discovery of such a great thing. In the end, it was Liang family's second son, Ling Dai, who helped his father Ling Shan assess the quality of the surrounding land and accidentally made the discovery while preparing for future farming. This solved the salt shortage issue in the territory. Although eating too much salt can lead to high blood pressure and other diseases, salt is still a necessity of life. A lack of salt intake can also be extremely harmful to the human body. It can even be fatal. So your original plan was, after the population in the territory increased, to send some people to the nearby coast and set up a salt works or something like that. Now it has saved a great deal of manpower and time. Because of this, the Liang family also received their first official farming task: collect some of the salt-bearing fruits appropriately, and study these fruits, including their characteristics and how to process and store them. It's best to also figure out how to cultivate salt-bearing fruits artificially, and master the techniques, so they can be grown on a large scale when necessary in the future. After all, not only do these fruits have high salt content, they also have a special taste when used in cooking. Otherwise, even Guo family's wife would have trouble making her meat soup taste good. That makes them extremely valuable. They're not just a simple substitute for salt. They should be considered a precious spice. Even if a salt works is established in the future, and there's plenty of table salt available, these salt-bearing fruits would still be irreplaceable. They could even become a local specialty of your territory. With some special packaging, they could be traded for a large amount of goods from others. You could easily reap big profits from other territories. Thinking of the huge profits from the ancient spice trade, you can't help but salivate already. Just looking at the salt-bearing fruit makes your eyes glow with excitement. How could these be considered ordinary little fruits? They're practically gold scattered all over the ground. Today you really struck it rich. After breakfast, the villagers once again got back to their own tasks. Even Guo Wusheng was assigned to look for a container big enough to hold earth fire wujin and to start practicing with water fire. You, on the other hand, began building small houses and summoning villagers. Over the past day, it wasn't just you who finished building the shelter and small houses and summoned the villagers. Some dryland lords were even bragging in the chat channel about unlocking new buildings in the next phase. However, for these aggressively expanding lords to get this far, the price is quite high. Those villagers who are emaciated and dull-eyed will likely all be classified as inferior by the system. Can they really help build the territory, instead of just being a burden? If regular level villagers are like ancient Chinese farmers or Roman citizens, then the inferior level villagers would probably be like the untouchables from India. Like Jiming from Hefei, they're useless, whether in terms of physical fitness and obedience, or skill level and sense of civilization. The gap between the two classes is enormous. If you admit these inferior villagers blindly just for progress, There will definitely be trouble later. You shake your head. And don't cut corners on the next small house builds. You honestly stick to regular grade small houses as the standard. So when the number of villagers grows rapidly, you can still ensure quality. Can still maintain a certain level of quality. What he needs is excellent labor, not just human-shaped livestock. For the next period of time, he focused on building cabins, summoning citizens, soothing newcomers, assigning jobs, gathering resources, while building cabins, while summoning citizens, while comforting newcomers, while assigning jobs, while gathering resources. Spent his days in this endless cycle. Every time resources are full, he could build about 5 standard cabins. Gathering full system resources at least takes 2 hours, plus settling and comforting the new citizens. This also takes a fair amount of time. A full round of summoning takes about 4 hours, which pushed him to his limits. By the end of each day, he only managed to build 15 standard district-style cabins. Because the system summoned citizens by family units, relying on these cabins, he got 15 citizen families summoned. But the population actually grew by 107. That's because citizens summoned by standard district cabins mostly came from the agricultural era. The agricultural era, population equals productivity. Having lots of kids is the norm. Just like the Guo family, only having one male heir is called sparse population. In the countryside, you can't compete for water or land. Among the families summoned, families could be as small as 4 or 5 people. Big ones had more than 10 members. Large families were very common, with the Guo and Liang families added. By this evening, his total population reached 115. The demographic makeup was quite striking. These summoned citizen families mostly suffered disasters where they couldn't survive. That's why they accepted the system's call and came here. In the crowd at this time, there were very few elderly, only 11. Young and middle-aged men were the majority, reaching 45. Young and middle-aged women were next, with 32 people left out of 27. The rest were teenagers and children under 15. After all, in disasters, the strong survive the most. Children are more energetic than the elderly. The elderly's deteriorating physical state is the least survivable group. These summoned citizens, or rescued ones, having such a demographic structure, isn't surprising. Before nightfall, everyone had dinner outside the shelter and got to know each other, laying the groundwork for future cooperation. Many citizens who lost family members saw the abundance of food before them, simple but clean housing, and disaster-free surroundings, and couldn't help but cry. If only their loved ones had been rescued too. How wonderful that would have been. So you had to comfort their hearts once again, and assign everyone their roles, using distraction to lighten the sadness on the scene. After everything was dealt with, the new citizens were sent to properly rest. Only then did Luo finally relax a bit. Being a leader isn't as easy as it seems. Then he noticed. He didn't know when. On the system interface, under his own profile panel, a prompt to name the territory appeared. Apparently, when your population exceeds 100, it's considered having a basic scale and qualifies as a power. And now you have the right to name your territory. This name isn't just a title. It also gives certain bonuses to the Lord's territory. For example, after successful naming, if the territory focuses on farming, it could boost food output. If it focuses on handicrafts, it may result in more quality products and so on. Of course, even though your territory has scale, it's still too small. For now, it can only be called something tribe. It can't be upgraded to something domain yet, or to something city level. Even so, it's still a good thing. You decided to call it Yanwang tribe. Didn't expect the system to ruthlessly deny it. Your name request was unfortunately rejected. That name has special meaning. It can't be used as an option. Please rename. Helplessly, he had to change the name of his small group. But Jushe, Waxia, Zhuwa, and others couldn't be used either. He cursed at the system for being crazy, maybe sensing his frustration. The system had to give an explanation. The name you've registered belongs to a specific group across the multiverse. You're broadly part of that group, but most of your territory's population do not belong to it. So as a local power, such specific names can't be used for now, cannot be used at present. meaning once certain conditions are met, it can be used. But by then, your faction's name might have already been set for a long time. Alright, then maybe Xing'an will work. Sorry, that is still a specific name. Thankfully, Luo wasn't completely clueless. Suddenly, inspiration struck. The poem says only the heavens have Han, and also have light. That's Xing'an. So original source means I can't use the name Xing'an. How about Weixin? Congratulations, your tribe has been named Weixin. Please keep up the good work. Continue to develop. Let the light of civilization shine. Finally sorted out that damn system. You then announced to your citizens. The territory would be called Weixin Tribe. These citizens were all summoned during crisis, by family unit through the system, just like the Guo and Liang families. To you, who saved them and has such authority, they are extremely respectful and grateful. It's just a name. Who would object? In fact, having a common name made all these citizens from different worlds feel a sense of identity. The anxiety from leaving home was greatly reduced. They settled down.
As night fell,
The rows of cabins grew quiet. Lack of lighting and entertainment, plus the fantasy-filled day, had everyone exhausted. Citizens went to bed, getting ready for tomorrow's construction. You thought the day was over. Opened the chat, peeped at some screens, saw how other Blue Star people lived in the other world, and their joys and sorrows, and unknowingly drifted off to sleep. Until midnight, heard loud crying and shouting. The sounds of fighting came from outside.
he was forced awake from sleep.
What's going on? A bit confused, he opened the peephole on the shelter wall. With the system's enhancement, he could use this small hole to see a fairly wide area outside the shelter. He was shocked by what he saw. A group of short and ugly, goblin-like creatures, armed with stones, wooden sticks, and other makeshift weapons, were fighting with his villagers. There were more goblins than villagers, but the goblins were much shorter, most of them not even a meter tall. Their strength was quite weak, and individually they weren't as strong as the villagers. Especially since among the villagers, there was Bio Wusheng, clad in armor and wielding a long sword. He was a man with a military background. Amidst the crowd of these green-skinned monsters, he created a bloody massacre. This struck fear into the goblins' hearts. In fact, these monsters had already wanted to run away for some time. But they were surrounded and besieged by the furious villagers. They couldn't escape and even considered surrendering. But the enraged villagers wouldn't accept that at all. When a goblin put down its weapon and knelt on the ground, its head was immediately bashed in. So they had no choice but to raise their weapons again. All of this started because a female villager was holding a child 5 or 6 years old with blood all over his face, crying in pain. You were stunned. You immediately opened the stone door and shouted, "What's going on here?" Bio Wushang, who was slaughtering goblins, answered you with a pained look. "My lord, these monsters ambushed our territory and even hurt a child." Even though you didn't know the details, you could understand how your people felt. Anyway, these goblins didn't look like anything good. You decisively gave your order, wake everyone up, keep 2 of these monsters alive to question, and kill the rest. In fact, by this point, most of the villagers were already awake. Some had rushed out, others hadn't received orders yet, so they weren't sure if they should join the fight. And some were really timid, frightened by the sight of the goblins. But since you'd given an order, regardless of which kind they were, no one dared to hesitate. They all charged out, holding the homemade tools they made during the day. Wooden sticks, stone knives, bamboo forks. Just grabbed whatever they could and swung at the surrounded goblins. Now, the goblins not only weren't as strong as the humans, but there were also fewer of them. They were completely overpowered and lost the fight. They were all defeated one after another. If it hadn't been for Guo Wushang remembering your instructions and stopping some of the villagers who were seeing red, not a single green-skinned monster would have survived. Afterwards, when you counted the numbers, there were a total of 24 goblins. Only 2 survivors were seriously injured, and 1 was lightly wounded. The rest were wiped out. You finally learned the details. The child who got hurt was part of a family of 9. In the middle of the night, he needed to pee, but they didn't have a chamber pot. The house was small and crowded, and if he peed inside, the whole family would be uncomfortable. Even though, during the day, you had Guo's and Liang's families warn the new villagers about what to watch out for, including not going out at night, and warnings about dangers outside. Those who never had any trouble tended to be overconfident. They figured when nature calls, you have no choice, and it wouldn't take long anyway. So his mother opened the door with him and took him outside to relieve himself. And that's when the accident happened. The goblins had already found your territory. During the day, because of the starter protection period enforced by the system, plus their preference for moving at night, they didn't show up, and you didn't spot them either. But at night, they've been lurking around. As soon as this mother and son stepped outside to check the situation, they were quickly noticed by the goblins. These monsters were all omnivorous, and humans were also just another kind of food to them. With prey separated from the others, they were sure to seize the opportunity. So they crept up and attacked. The mother was an adult, tall and strong. Although she screamed in pain from being hit on the back of her head, it was just a superficial wound. But it was different for the child. The goblins were young themselves, with bones that hadn't fully developed. He was smacked so hard his head was bleeding, and passed out. It was unclear if he would survive. The family woke up from the commotion, rushed out with clubs and other weapons, and furiously fought with the goblins. This also alerted the vigilant villagers, and a Bo Wushang who's used to military actions, so they all came out to help. You both pitied the new family for their misfortune, and were angry at them for ignoring your warnings. But the most annoying thing is still the sneak attacks. The goblins knew that the area around their territory wouldn't be peaceful, but they didn't expect that such a dangerous group of monsters would exist. This makes you very uncomfortable, like a thorn in your flesh. No, this thorn must be pulled out. Beside the bed where I sleep, how can I let others snore? After dawn, the subjects followed your orders and burned all the corpses of the 24 goblins to prevent a plague from breaking out. The 2 severely injured goblins died on their own. After questioning the lightly injured ones for enough information, Guo Wushang finished them off with his blade. This tribe of man-eaters must be completely wiped out. The child who was hit on the head was lucky. He woke up after being unconscious for half the night. Aside from needing to rest for a while, there wasn't much of a problem. The subjects also learned their lesson. Knowing there was danger nearby, they probably won't venture out at night anymore. However, these are just temporary fixes. You decided to address the root cause by improving your own strength. He first built the new buildings unlocked, after meeting the required conditions, to increase the territory's productivity. These new buildings are the granary, the lumber mill, and the stables. The granary can serve as a warehouse to store supplies. More importantly, it came with a batch of wheat and rice seeds upon completion, which can be considered a benefit from the system for the lords. The lumber mill can also be used as a warehouse, and it came with some crude woodworking tools. This can improve the workers' efficiency in using timber. However, most of these tools are made of stone, which makes you very unhappy. The system actually refused to give even a few metal tools. It's too stingy. Despite the anger, having tools is better than nothing. You immediately put a group of subjects in there. Those for logging, log. Those for crafting, craft. At the very least, a batch of chamber pots must be made first, to prevent subjects who can't hold it at night from taking risks and running into the wild to relieve themselves. The stables didn't come with any extra items, but it has a wonderful effect. If animals intended for livestock are put inside, it can reduce the chance of them getting sick. Using it to develop animal husbandry will yield twice the result with half the effort, effectively increasing the future meat supply for the subjects. At the same time, you also refine the organization and division of labor among the subjects. Aside from the subjects he personally put into the lumber mill, everyone else was assigned their respective duties. He first handed the rice and wheat seeds to Liangshan, and had him lead those among the subjects who were most skilled in farming. He got the farming business, which concerns everyone's stomach, started. and then let Liang Shan's eldest son, Liang Tian, and the youngest son, Liang Di, lead a team to take over Liang Shan's original task. Until Liang Shan and the others grow wheat and rice, they will continue to be responsible for gathering food and try to catch some small animals along the way, such as herbivores, to try and raise them in the stables. This is to prevent the territory from running out of food before the agricultural system is fully established, leaving everyone to go hungry. Since it was confirmed that creatures like goblins exist around the territory, Guo Wusheng was urgently appointed as the territory's military instructor, responsible for spreading military knowledge among the subjects. At least let the subjects know how to protect themselves when facing a sudden battle. At the same time, 10 brave and sturdy young men who were willing to fight were selected to serve as full-time combat personnel. They were taught combat skills, and their training was aimed at exterminating the goblins and defending the safety of the territory. The women of the Guo family led some older women to manage the kitchen and look after the elderly who were unable to work, as well as the little kids. However, the little kids had quite a bit of resentment toward the two women, because they were among the few subjects who were literate. You gave them the task of teaching the little kids, so the kids couldn't play as freely as before. There was also a new subject named Willie, who had skills as a mason. He was promoted to lead some surplus labor to start building around the shelter, constructing public toilets and walls. The former was for epidemic prevention, to prevent subjects from defecating everywhere. It could also serve as base fertilizer for crops later. The latter was to protect the safety of the territory and prevent a repeat of last night's disaster, where goblins launched a sneak attack and injured people. One thing after another, you didn't follow the construction and unlocking path provided by the system to develop the territory. Instead, you adapted, adjusting the construction projects based on your current situation. Although doing this meant losing the help of the system's power. For example, the wall currently under construction would require the subjects to build it themselves bit by bit, piling up the raw materials themselves, which was much more troublesome than the system manifesting it instantly. It allowed for early and significant protection to be provided to the territory and the subjects. But this was not enough. You knew very well that the biggest problem restricting the development speed of the territory came from tools. Lack of metal farming tools meant Liang Shan and the farmers in the agricultural group had to work with crude wooden tools, or even stone tools. Lack of metal processing machinery and logging axes meant the workers at the lumber mill had to spend a huge amount of time and labor costs on cutting and processing trees. Lack of metal weapons and armor meant the prospective soldiers in the military group could only practice with harmless wooden sticks, following Guo Wushang to learn battle formations. Even due to the lack of metal pots, many people found it hard to even have a hot soup or a hot meal. They could only eat greasy roasted meat or bland fruit to satisfy their hunger. Fortunately, this problem was about to be solved. Through the system's trading function, you exchanged other resources with candidates who had metal mineral resources for quite a bit of metal or... Guo Wushang also found a large hollow stone that looked like a water vat. Filling it with water was enough to submerge the earth-fire dark gold, allowing it to turn into fire and water for metal smelting. When Guo Wushang brought this large stone vat, along with his 10 prospective soldiers, and filled it with water, he waited expectantly for the sunset scene. In fact, you were very expectant yourself. He had never seen a phenomenon like fire and water before, and he was extremely desperate for metal tools. He hoped the earth-fire dark gold could help him solve this problem. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he took out a piece of earth-fire dark gold the size of a soccer ball from the Lord's personal space, moved it over the surface of the water in the stone vat, and then let go. With a splash, the earth-fire dark gold, which had a metallic luster, sank into the water and suddenly changed its form, becoming a miraculous flame flickering with a mesmerizing golden light. Fire and water! It really is fire and water! Someone put in the oar. Seeing the earth-fire dark gold transform into fire and water, You knew the most critical step had arrived, and gave the order with some nervousness. Driven by curiosity, and taking advantage of his position as the commander, Guo Wushang was the first to grab a piece from the pile of metal or nearby, and gently placed it into the stone vat. This was iron ore you had traded for from a candidate who had been thrown into a polar region. This kind of ore at the Chosen One's place is a completely open-pit mine. The quality is excellent. According to the system's identification, it belongs to an enriched iron ore with over 60% iron content. An astonishing scene occurred. When the iron ore fell into the water, as soon as it touched the water, the heat immediately started melting it. A large amount of impurities was decomposed, some turning into gas, with bubbling rolling up in the stone vat, and some turning into residue, settling at the bottom of the vat. Only a bright crimson stream of molten iron flowed under the endless smelting of the earth fire. At the same time, the water in the vat started to decrease rapidly. A huge amount of steam rose up. This was caused by the heat generated from the decomposition of the iron ore. Oh my God, this is truly amazing. Guo Wushang was stunned. He had never seen such a mystical scene. The other people were just about the same. But you nearly jumped up. What are you waiting for? Put it in. The ore. Unfortunately, the stone VAT's capacity is limited after all. The heat generated from melting the ore with water and fire is also quite terrifying. It quickly evaporated all the water. When the stone vat and its contents and the metal refined within it had cooled down, everyone moved forward again and saw that the bottom of the vat was covered with or residue. On top of that was a layer of refined iron. At the very top was a lump of underground fire wujin shaped like a soccer ball again. You picked it up lightly, the fire wujin, and it landed in your hand without any resistance. Looking again at the iron and the residue below, you told Guo Wushang to get the metal out from below, so we could see how to use it. Guo Wushang was very excited. He shouted to his subordinates, and everyone worked together, and instantly flipped the stone vat over. Accompanied by a heavy thud as the iron block hit the ground, what appeared before everyone was a lump of metal that had been refined, but had not yet been forged. Look, the connection between the residue and the iron is very loose. You can just wipe it off. The quality of this iron is really good. If you made swords and knives from this, they'd definitely be hard. But figuring out how to use it is a bit of a headache. We didn't prepare a mold in advance. With such a big piece of iron, it's hard to even grind it down. Wouldn't it work if we just melt it again? Put the mold at the bottom. At least we'll get a proper shape from smelting. This stuff is also good for making iron adhesives. Everyone started discussing animatedly. You were actually quite happy to see them taking initiative. Let's go with your plan. Let's gather some clay to make a mold, and use the water fire to melt the iron and pour it in. We really need metal tools. Let's get to it right away. The military team members temporarily became iron workers, straightening up the stone vat, cleaning off the residue, fetching and pouring water, making molds. After a round of tinkering, the first thing they managed to make was a big, dumb, clunky iron hammer. Although this hammer looked ugly and was crudely made, with burrs and air bubbles all over the surface, it still set off a round of cheers among the people. With an iron hammer, you can forge metal. That makes it possible to create more refined metal tools. Sure enough, after dividing up the work, they soon cranked out some metal tools that weren't exactly high quality, but were the only metal tools they had at this time, like axes, shovels, and iron picks. You took charge and gave these metal tools to the young people who needed them. Many people started cheering, because the appearance and distribution of these metal tools meant not just more convenient ways to work, but also steadily growing strength and a sense of prosperity and security. Yes, security. That's a really important feeling, crucial for whether an entire civilized society can stay stable, and for whether morale can be raised. Even though today, you didn't manage to build more huts and summon more people, you did solidly lay a strong foundation. What surprised him even more was, when he joined the military team, to help Li Ming, who had learned some blacksmithing, using poor quality hammers and uneven anvils, forging over and over again, finally striking out a long blade with a sharp edge. The system actually rang in his ears. Congratulations, esteemed Lord Luo. You and your people have successfully developed metallurgy. In this primitive era, Mingyu Street has discovered advanced technology, ignited a brilliant flame of civilization. This achievement surpasses all other chosen ones. It has been recorded in the Technology Compendium. In recognition of your outstanding contribution, you may receive a well-deserved reward. Please make your choice. To be honest, you are absolutely shocked right now. So that's what the Technology Compendium is for. Basically, it is a testament to the progress of civilization, a competition between the achievements of the chosen. Those whose achievements are included can receive rewards. But looking at the three options the system presented, gave him a headache again. 7-star Longyuan Legendary Sword Aoyixi. Special Building, Sword Pool. Damn, they're all amazing items. How am I supposed to choose just one? 7-star Longyuan, the Sword of Utmost Integrity. The legendary sword forged by sword ancestors Ouyezi and Zhang together. Two master swordsmiths working in tandem. Said to be the very first iron sword in China. The system's description even bluntly declared, this sword contains legendary power beyond the mortal realm. Legendary inheritance, Ouyezi. A manual recording the sword forging techniques of Master Ouyezi. Those who read it have a chance to receive guidance from Ouyezi's spirit, making great strides in swordsmithing skills. Special Building, Sword Pool, an incredible building with a natural sword forging spring, can quench 3 forged items daily, raising their quality by 1 tier. Honestly, each one is an unparalleled treasure. I want them all. But the system cruelly forced a tough choice with only 1 out of 3, leaving you sad and unable to deal with it. But in the end, he cast aside all greedy desires. After a calm consideration, he gave up the 7-star Longyuan and the Special Building, because the former is treasure for just one person. Even though it holds magical power, it's ultimately just personal strength, can only create one formidable expert, but does little to advance the whole civilization. The same logic applies. The sword pool's impact on the civilization as a whole is also too limited. Only a treasure like Legend Inheritance, Ouyezi, can train as many refining and swordsmith talents as possible, laying a solid foundation for civilization. It even makes it possible to recreate 7-star Longyuan, or locate the spring for the sword pool. That's the true essence of civilization. I choose the legendary inheritance. Ouyezi. The system's mechanical voice remained cold. The reward has been delivered to your lord's space. Please check and claim it. What caught you off guard was, the system didn't stop at the announcement, but instead issued a global bulletin. World announcement. The Weixin tribe, during the shelter phase, has completed the invention of metallurgy, becoming the first to earn this honor in the Technology Compendium. Hereby announced to the world. Celebrate together, everyone. Let other chosen ones strive even harder. Ignite the great flame of civilization. This immediately stirred up a storm. The world channel went wild after that message. Everyone was in disbelief. They're still painfully stuck with stone, wooden, or bone tools. But someone has already mastered metallurgy. Doesn't this mean the other side has entered the Metal Age? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Uncle Emperor, huge star, PG, oh my god. Who the hell is so amazing? How did he do it? It's only the 3rd day, and he's already reached the Metal Age? I have to say, I don't believe it. Up to now, I'm still grinding painfully making stone tools to boost the work efficiency of my territory. And you're telling me someone's already developed metallurgy? That's basically hacking. Countless people couldn't accept this reality, shouting noisily and chaotically, filled with envy, jealousy, spite, and helplessness. Some people managed to stay calm. The leader of the Land of Fire. Someone actually solved the metallurgy problem faster than me. They're really an incredible opponent. That Weixin tribe, bro. Are you also in the fire zone? Someone asked that. What's that got to do with the fire zone? Of course it's related, the leader of Fireland said. Because the fire zone has flames hot enough, which can be used to melt metal and refine products. But I still can't solve The major toxic gases in the fire zone. And the fact that the temperature is so high it kills people easily. Every time we forge a metal item, we lose a few citizens. That's probably why the system hasn't confirmed. I've completed metallurgy yet. I'm really curious. How did the Wishun tribe bro manage it? A lot of people were shocked. Someone quickly shot back. How could you do that? The people are living beings after all. They're people too. They just happen to come from another world and are here to serve under us. Aren't you worried about getting a loss of virtue debuff? Fireland leader laughed. I'm not killing wantonly for pleasure. I'm pushing civilization forward. The development of civilization has always been built upon countless pioneers' sacrifices. Those people volunteered to give their lives. Their courage and sacrifices added a splendid spark to my civilization. Their names are on my monument, to be remembered by later generations. How does that make me immoral? Your kind of baseless insult is just stupid. Unable to face reality, that's hypocrisy. That's the real sign of losing virtue. The chosen ones with different beliefs started arguing. It was a while before someone got back to the point. So, who's the chosen one of Wishun tribe? Say something. Let us all admire you. Can you speak up? What do you mean by say something to admire? That person is the very first on the technology compendium. Show some respect. Show some basic respect. Someone else, with a deadpan voice, said something dripping with sarcasm. But without a doubt, many people were curious. Who achieved metallurgy so quickly? Who could this legend be? Someone went further. Hey, big boss. Show yourself. I want to buy metal tools from you. At that, people forgot the sarcasm. Yeah, this person already unlocked metallurgy and made metal tools. Made it onto the technology compendium. That's a definite fact. What's the point of jealousy now? Instead of griping angrily due to jealousy and offending such a powerful figure, why not trade with them and become partners? The person is awesome. Shouldn't you try to join them instead? The chat quickly flipped to flattery, becoming a stream of over-the-top compliments, perfectly displaying the variety of human nature. You're left speechless. Luckily, the system announcement only reveals the civilization code of the chosen one, and not specific information. Otherwise, he'd probably be bombarded with private messages again. He can't be bothered to waste time chatting with unrelated people. He'd rather use that free time to gather more resources or guide his people to develop further. He was about to close the chat and focus on improving metal tools and weapons to raise the overall level of his territory, when a private message arrived from a very familiar trading partner. Just now. Bro, you're the badass who took down the wild gin tree, right? Polar Slacker, a backup candidate with an unknown real name. Unlucky enough to be thrown into a polar environment at the start. Completely relied on discovering high-quality iron ore to trade with others through the system's trading feature. Especially with you. That's how he managed to stay afloat. Thanks to you. With the supplies he recently got through trading.
He was able to build his shelter.
And also begin the difficult development of his own civilization territory. But from what he said in chat, he doesn't plan to stay and develop where he is forever. Instead, he wants to stockpile materials and find a way to leave that extreme environment after the territory upgrade, so he can start over somewhere warmer. Whatever the competition plans is their own business. What you need to do is quietly search for more alternative suppliers on the trading channel, in case Polar Slacker really migrates and your top supplier is gone. But right now, the other side actually guessed that he was the boss who took down the wild gin tree. Is this a bluff or deduction? Don't worry, bro. I mean no harm. I just want to confirm something. If you really are the one announced by the system, all I want is to expand our trade types with you. Coming from Polar Slacker. That sounds pretty credible. Iron ore is good and all, but the current market isn't big. The reason is, metal smelting is way beyond what most chosen ones can do right now. The few who have smelting capabilities, like that Firelands chief, already have the resources, and almost all of Polar Slacker's supplies come from his most important trade partners. So turning against them would be just stupid, especially after exposing you. What good would it do for Polar Slacker? Right now, none of the candidates know each other's locations. Even if he exposes you as the metalworking boss, It would only make you more noticeable in the chat channels. That's about it. It wouldn't help anyone find the Weixin tribe's base. Not to mention robbing it. It only hurts both sides. It's something only a complete fool would do. So you've basically ruled out any bad intentions from Polar Slacker. Besides, now that he has managed to experiment with D-Fire Black Gold, he'll definitely want to mass-produce metal tools and naturally get more iron ore from you. That's just how it goes. So you admit it, yes. I was indeed the first to master metallurgy and became the first one on the tech record. Damn, it really is you. Awesome, bro. Polar Slacker's reply was very excited. Since you've got metal working down, you must be increasing your metal output, right? Need more iron ore. I was just about to bring that up with you. I hope you can supply more iron ore. But as for the price, don't worry. I'm not like those idiots from Australia. Long-term business is what counts. Let's just keep the price the same. If you want a bigger quantity, I can even give you a better deal. I've got an open pit mine over here anyway. So collecting and trading are easy. Polar Slacker promised generously. It's just on the types of goods. I want to add some metal tools and weapons. That's no problem. But the quality might not be great. After all, I just figured out metallurgy. The production process is still pretty primitive. It all depends on hand forging. You were upfront about the downsides. Looking at the knife Li Ming made before, the blade was pretty decent. But the overall craftsmanship was hard to look at. Even the spine of the knife was worthless. But Polar Slacker kept insisting. It doesn't matter as long as it's good for smashing people and hacking bears, it's enough. Smashing people and hacking bears. You look a bit startled. Grow, buddy. Life is hard. Even a polar salted fish is about to cry. The polar environment is harsh and difficult. And it's not peaceful at all. On the ice fields, there are not only snow bears and tiger-like beasts, but also packs of tundra wolves. There are even migrating snowfield barbarians. These past few days have felt like years to me. It's been a bitter struggle. Even worse, I didn't pay attention when building my shelter, and I ended up having a den of snow bears as neighbors. Those bears ignore me during the day, but as soon as night falls, they come to my door and howl. I haven't had a full night's sleep in 2 days. Holy crap, that's miserable. There's definitely some exaggeration in these words, but the survival environment for polar salted fish is most likely very terrible. Besides everything else, the polar temperature alone is a massive problem. He's relying entirely on the protection of the newbie period to hold on. All right, I understand. I can provide you with some iron hammers first. See if you want them. Weapons like swords are much harder to forge and take much longer to make. You plan to find some people among the residents who have some blacksmithing foundation and start a night school or something. Let them contemplate the famous generals and inherit the secret techniques of Oyezi. After they improve their skills, they can take on the challenge. But manufacturing iron hammers is relatively simple. Just pass the ore through the water, pour it into the mold to cool, and it's mostly formed. Then just add a handle, and it's ready to use. It's the easiest thing to mass produce right now. Polar salted fish wasn't picky at all. Seeing the pictures of the hammers you sent, he was overjoyed. Yes, let's be reasonable. To fight bears with these hammers, they might be even more practical than swords. My subordinate Li Ming needs exactly this kind of handy tool. That's true. If something like a hammer is used as a weapon, it often causes severe internal organ damage. In the era of cold weapons, they were used to deal with armored elites. Against thick-skinned and tough animals, they are also very effective, provided you can swing them. But that's not something you need to worry about. He immediately conducted a trade with polar salted fish, in exchange for 5 hammerheads, plus a batch of timber, food, plant fibers, and other special materials. He traded a batch of iron ore from the other party to replenish the raw materials consumed in previous field practice. With this batch of iron ore, the military group members temporarily acting as metallurgical workers became busy again. Before dark, they tried to make as many metal tools and weapons as possible. Not just so everyone would have metal tools to use, but also to enhance the defense capabilities of the territory. No one would forget those short, green-skinned monsters that appeared last night. They were indeed not tall, and individually not very strong, but their numbers were large, and they were brutal and ruthless in their attacks, also very good at ambush. Moreover, who could guarantee that among those monster groups, there weren't stronger and more dangerous elites? Arming themselves as quickly as possible to form sufficient combat power was the main priority. Once their strength reached a certain level, they would even take the initiative to attack and wipe those monsters out. As the Lord said, how can one let others sleep soundly beside one's own bed? Bo Wushang and the others, who were busy until dark, barely met the residents' demand for metal tools. The workers at the Gap lumber yard used metal axes with relatively dull edges. But it didn't matter. They were much better than stone axes. With a little more sharpening, they would be usable. Liang Shan and the others from the Dragon Lantern group used iron shovels and small pickaxes with bumpy surfaces, saving them from the pain of digging soil with their hands. The brothers Ling Tian and Leon Di from the gathering group, and the residents they led, were distributed some crooked iron rods, mainly for self-defense. But some residents had a natural talent for hunting, and actually used these iron rods as javelins, bringing back several pieces of prey to add to the meal. The engineering group led by Wei Li was even happier. The metal tools were crude, but it didn't matter. They were enough to greatly increase their labor efficiency. Whether it was digging pits for public toilets or foundations for the walls, everything became much more convenient. Even in logistics, the Guo family women and the older ladies from various families were all incredibly happy. The first iron plate melted by the military group, because the surface was too rough, was finally sent to the kitchen to serve as a griddle for cooking ingredients. This was much better than stone slabs or other cooking tools. Not only did it use less firewood, but its heat conductivity was better, and it was more portable. The variety of food they could make increased significantly. Finally, they were able to prepare enough hot meals to feed the male residents doing the hard labor. And the use of the iron plate also allowed the pot brought by the Guo family to be used for the more important task of boiling water. Don't underestimate boiled water. It is a vital supply that greatly reduces the chance of disease. For the entire territory of over 100 people, safe drinking water now relied entirely on those two pots. At the end of the day, everyone had been busy and had worked very hard. The construction progress of the entire territory was rapid. But while most people were sleeping that night, some had to work even harder. You didn't do what you did last night, letting everyone go back to their rooms and lock the doors for sleep as soon as night fell. Instead, you gathered some residents who knew a bit about blacksmithing, or were interested and clever, 10 people in total, to come to your shelter for night school. Compared to the residents' small ordinary huts, the shelter had more space and good ventilation. As long as you were willing to use firewood, it could be lit up at night. The group huddled around the fire pit, struggling to contemplate the famous general's legacy of Ouyujizi. This secret manual was not in the form of a book, but more like a jade slip from a cultivation novel. As long as the reader held the slip-like manual, they could receive the information feedback from within, allowing them to read and reflect. Also, there was a certain chance of receiving guidance from the spirit of Ouyezi, so the night school students, basically, after touching the jade slip, sat quietly and concentrated their minds, contemplating the principles of forging and casting within their brains. The scene was very quiet. No one was dissatisfied with this. Although most of these residents came from peasant backgrounds and were mostly illiterate, they all knew the value of knowledge. Lord Luo was willing to take out such a precious treasure to teach them the knowledge within it. He was honoring them and giving them a chance to change their future fates. Who would refuse? Only a fool. You also spent some time contemplating it yourself. But since he had a good foundation, he was clearly more capable of accepting new knowledge than the night school students. As a result, this contemplation lasted directly until the next morning. When he had mastered much of the knowledge in the manual, He opened his eyes, feeling refreshed. What you see is, the night school members are still diligently studying. Yet their spirits are surprisingly high. None of them have dark circles under their eyes. Perhaps that's because Yujian Tong has a rather unique way of reading. It's somewhat similar to the legendary deep sleep learning method. It balances learning new knowledge and maintaining mental energy. You asked everyone once. All 10 night school students said they studied all night and learned a lot. So let's prove it through practice. Without another word, he brought these aspiring blacksmiths to the riverside. Due to the special nature of refining Jehu Wuzhen metal, smelting metal by the water's edge is really a necessity. Fortunately, it's not too far from the shelter. But when they arrived, they discovered some of the facilities everyone built yesterday had been destroyed. Not only did the crude straw shelter and iron table collapse, the clay cylinder model Jiyu Wusheng came up with was also smashed to pieces. Luckily, the stone vat was more important. It's currently the only furnace suitable for water fire smelting. It was moved back to the shelter last night. Otherwise, it probably would have been ruined as well. Who the hell did this? Jiyu Wusheng rushed over when he heard the commotion and saw his masterpiece, his hard work completely destroyed. He exploded with rage. Who else could it be? Those green-skinned goblins, obviously. You solved the case pretty quickly. Not because you're Sherlock, but because you heard from workers living near the lumber mill that a large group of goblins came to make trouble last night. Unlike the granary built near the shelter, the lumber mill needs to be close to woodland resources, so it's built at the forest's edge. Since it's a system building, it also enjoys newbie protection. The lumber mill is currently a safe place where people can stay. Because ordinary houses and cabins are cramped, most residents are large families with many people, with very little living space. Some lumberjacks chose to stay and rest at the lumber mill, so their families could have more room. So they saw last night the goblins running wild. There were even more than the previous night, at least 100. Most were those short, skinny types, but vicious. Some of them were quite tall, not much shorter than local humans, and burly. The most terrifying of all, there was one goblin over 2 meters tall, as big as a bear, with a mouth full of sharp teeth, and wielding a weapon like a spiked club. The destruction at the riverside was caused by this guy rampaging. You understood immediately. Those goblins definitely came here for revenge. Since the territory had previously wiped out 24 of their companions, it's either them or us. At this point, this realization has become common knowledge for everyone in the Weixin tribe. Without the system's newbie protection, last night should have been the decisive battle between humans and goblins. We can't wait anymore. These little green monsters not only seriously threaten everyone's lives and property, but also greatly slow down the territory's development. Today is already the 4th day, and newbie protection lasts only 11 days. Every day is so precious. Who could stand having a bunch of damned troublemakers stirring things up nearby? Start forging weapons right away. You take out the Jehu Wuzhen metal and put it in the stone vat, and say to the 10 apprentice blacksmiths, let's try to forge enough qualified weapons today, and fully equip our territory with metal arms. My lord, are you planning to go all out against those green monsters? B.O. Wusheng, who's particularly sharp about military matters, immediately guessed what you were thinking. That's right, you replied. I'm sure those monsters aren't going to let this go. They failed to get revenge on us last night, so tonight they'll be back for sure. I can't stand these guys causing trouble every day. Tonight, we'll set a trap and wait for them. Let them exhaust themselves while we stay ready. Understood. Jiyu Wushang glanced at his military team again. It's just that these boys haven't finished their training yet. Their martial arts aren't refined, and their weapons aren't complete. We're out of time. Your expression is serious now, a complete departure from your usual kindness. You look toward the uneasy and somewhat nervous members of the military group. The period of safety we can enjoy is very short. After the mysterious existence withdraws the divine protection over us, we will face countless expected and unexpected dangers. So this period of time is the development window we need to cherish most. We absolutely cannot allow harassment from those little green monsters like goblins to ruin our grand development plans. If we can't take them out decisively, it's highly likely we'll be the ones taken out later. This is a lethal battle, not some small matter we can back down from. Do you understand? Understood. The military group members who were initially cringing, hearing that the territory might be destroyed and everyone might die, suddenly got fired up. They are all survivors of various disasters. They have already experienced life and death. Although life in the Weixin tribe is tough, the future is vast, and they are very satisfied. They don't want this new home to be ruined. Guo Wusheng silently marveled at how impressive Lord Luo was. By putting it this way, the morale is clearly high enough to be used. During the time that followed, Guo Wusheng discussed with Yu how to execute the ambush tonight. Afterwards, he took the citizens of the military group to set up traps. You contacted Arctic salted fish and traded for another large batch of iron ore from him. You gave it to the 10 citizens who had studied under famous masters and inherited the legacy of Ouyezi to practice forging and making weapons. However, he has been busy with territorial affairs these past 2 days and hasn't had much time to gather resources. The resource reserves in the system are nearly exhausted. Resource gathering facilities like the logging camp have only just opened, primarily supplying the demand for wood products within the territory. So there isn't much accumulation of timber resources. After arranging the duties for the citizens, he had no choice but to head out again to gather resources from the surroundings. As for recruiting new citizens, that will have to wait until after tonight's battle, when we can develop in peace. Intent on securing peace with a single battle, you attach extreme importance to combat preparations, having no intention of diverting resources at this time. The day passed quickly. The apprentice blacksmiths did a good job. Though their skills still need practice, the weapons they produced were passable, at least much stronger than yesterday's. They not only made blades for the 10 recruits of the military group, but also crafted several iron-rimmed shields, greatly increasing the military group's strength 5-fold. In addition, they forged many spearheads, which could be used as spears when fitted onto long wooden poles. However, these were distributed to the various citizen families, about 1 or 2 per household. This was certainly not for free. When the time for battle comes, these families need to provide extra manpower to serve as spearmen and help in the fight. The citizens in other areas were also prepared. Those helping to dig pits dug pits, and preparations were made to produce solid projectiles to help with long-range throwing attacks when the time comes. The loggers even sharpened their axes significantly, ready to chop those goblins. Especially by the afternoon, for the sake of tonight's ambush, you let the citizens rest from various labors early, to eat and sleep, conserving energy for the battle that would likely occur tonight. Before nightfall shrouded the entire territory, it fell into an eerie silence. The sun set and the moon rose. The starry sky was brilliant. In the quiet night, the howling of wild beasts could be heard from time to time, just as usual. But an observant person would notice that in certain directions, the roars of wild beasts were being driven away. A rustling sound was heard. A large number of short, ugly-faced, and ferocious goblins emerged from the forest. The total number definitely exceeded 100, and among this group of screeching monsters, several tall monsters were particularly striking. They were the core fighting force within this goblin colony, strong monsters known as hobgoblins. The most eye-catching was one over 2 meters tall, burly in stature, a massive goblin monster that seemed to grow sideways. He was the king of this goblin colony, the strongest of them all. Just as you expected, these highly vengeful monsters came after all. Then, this group of monsters that had never faced failure took a heavy blow right at the start. Just as they were about to destroy the walls the citizens had built during the day, along with the pillars and such, a bunch of the little green monsters stepped into thin air and fell into traps, screeching as they were impaled by sharp wooden stakes everywhere. Before the other goblins' rage could flare up, the citizens had already rushed out with a shout. A rain of stones was thrown into the goblin crowd first. "It's an ambush!" The goblins and the king of this goblin tribe roared, swinging logs embedded with various unknown objects, their spiked clubs smashing forcefully toward the surrounding humans. In a loud crash, a spiked club and a large iron-rimmed shield collided head-on. The massive force struck those two hands, and the stunned human fell backward with a cry. Fortunately, the main group was right behind him, and the hands of his comrades propped him up. Although it hurt a lot, the large shield provided effective protection, and the iron plating made it even sturdier. Once the blood flow in his arms cleared, he would be a strong shield once again. And this was just a microcosm of the battlefield. Even the Goblin King, facing the human encirclement, could not achieve anything, let alone the other little green monsters. Were they going to smash the humans' toes with the wooden sticks and stones in their hands? The advantage on the battlefield fell to the side of the Weixin tribe from the very beginning. Projectiles thrown, spears thrusting, shields covering, and swords slashing, with the appearance of raw metal. And the equipment of metal tools and weapons, the strength of the Weixin tribe you lead, has made a leap in progress. Facing these goblins, hitting them with equipment from the Metal Age, versus their Stone Age was like an adult beating a small child. No matter how brave the Goblin King and Hobgoblins were, they couldn't withstand the finishing blows of advanced weapons. The small goblins were the first to break. They were already inferior to humans in physical strength, endurance, intelligence, and other aspects. With the fatal flaw of weapon disparity, they were directly plunged into a state of being slaughtered. Many little green monsters cried and shouted, trying to flee back to the forest. Unfortunately for them, these citizens were also ruthless people. They were all survivors of various disasters. Who among them hadn't fought for their lives? "Since you monsters want our lives, we'll slaughter you all first." Never mind the men. Even the women joined the fray. Behind the men's battle formation, they specifically caught and ganged up on the little green ones trying to escape. The one who put an end to this chaotic battle was Guo Wushang, covered in blood. Hold up the Goblin King's head. Under the torchlight, illuminated. At that moment, both small goblins and big ones saw their king fall to the blade and lost the will to fight immediately, fleeing in all directions. After the battle, Guo Wushang reported to you as usual that there were about 180 goblins in total invading the territory, and fewer than 50 managed to escape, with their king slain as well. This battle was a complete victory. But to his surprise, you shook your head. Not enough. Guo Wucheng was a bit puzzled. It's not just the 50 or so goblins that got away, but also their lair. We haven't cleared it out either. How could this be called a complete victory? Your calm reply caught Guo Wusheng off guard.
He quickly asked, "My lord."
Does this count as a loss? You shook your head again. Don't use your usual thinking to judge the problems we're facing now. Jinchan is Guo Wushang's courtesy name. He was a figure from the 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms era. Naturally, he retained the habits of ancient people. Surname, given name, courtesy name. The naming culture of China has always been complex. By calling him this way, you're showing closeness. Before you came to the territory, although etiquette was in shambles, and the Central Plains were in chaos, in the end it was still strife between people. No matter if they were Han, Hitan, or Shachuo, they were all deeply influenced by the legacy of the Tang dynasty. After all, it was a struggle between civilized peoples. But here, it's different. They're not human. You point at the goblins. Maybe they have emotions like us. But in the end, they're not like us. They even see us as food. These kinds of creatures. Do you really think we can change them with our humanity? Hearing that, Guo Wusheng was actually delighted, but still said, "My lord, forgive me. I was foolish for a moment. I didn't even think of this simple point. I deserve punishment." You chuckled and said, "It's fine. You're just worried that I'll turn out to be overly righteous, full of Confucian nonsense. Thinking you hit it well. Just deal with those green skins thoroughly for me, and I won't blame you."
Guo Wushang got reprimanded.
But he wasn't frightened at all, and happily accepted your order. In fact, you somewhat understood his thoughts. This was just Guo Wushang reacting based on past experience. He's been an officer after all. Serving as a retainer is a discipline on its own.
Taking out an entire enemy clan.
You usually need explicit permission first. Otherwise, you might be labeled as cruel, and almost certainly punished for it.
In Chinese history,
Many people met their end under such pretext. Most notably, General Bai Qi would approve. You are happy to ease the mind of your loyal green-skinned SSR? Then Guo Wusheng led people to pursue the fleeing enemies, focusing only on the goblin lairs. Although the forest at night is full of dangers, goblins and humans moved along in large numbers. Even ferocious carnivores had to take a detour for now. Besides, you have pretty much gotten the hang of this trial. For most rookie chosen ones, a herd of beasts and goblin monsters, plus some dangerous environmental factors, would already make things quite difficult. If true evil gods appeared for newcomers, it's not impossible either. But this area doesn't really seem like that. You've scouted it several times the past 2 days.
anyway,
With your tribe's current advantage in metal weapons, as long as you don't stray too far, hunting down goblin stragglers and wiping out their lairs shouldn't be a problem. No need to worry about invincible enemies. Someone kept ambushing on the left, waiting for a surprise attack. Sure enough, when dawn broke, news came that the goblin lair had been breached and was now completely under control. But the situation on site was a bit complicated. Guo Wusheng dared not decide on his own, and could only ask you, my lord, should you come here yourself to decide what to do next. At first you suspected that Guo Wusheng couldn't bring himself to do it, since they'd already reached the goblin lair, and there were bound to be some young goblins inside, which wouldn't be surprising. And as for slaughtering offspring, well, for the white and dark-skinned people, there was never really any obstacle. Things like scalping or massacring Hu nomads weren't a big deal. But Waxia entered civilization too early, so there's still some emphasis on virtue and morality. Guo Wuchang, after all, studied the 4 books and 5 classics. So it's natural to have some moral scruples. It's understandable if he hesitates to deal the killing blow. He had no choice but to leave the cleanup of the shelter side and the aftermath of the battlefield to others, and come here personally. The story of the farmer and the snake still rings true. He could only make sure not to become the farmer himself. Escorted by a strong member of the populace, they crossed woods and streams along the way. After a journey of about 5 kilometers, they arrived at the goblin lair. The location here is actually pretty good. It's a deep cave right by a stream. No one knows how long this goblin tribe has been operating here. The cave inside was dug in a winding, twisting manner, making the space quite large. If the main goblin force hadn't been defeated, and Guo Wushang hadn't led his people in hot pursuit, seizing the chance to strike at their heart, before the monsters could regroup, just this cave alone could have given the Weixin tribe a real headache. But it's different now. The goblin corpses scattered along the way show that the place has already been cleared. The only issue is the terrible stench. The goblins had zero concept of hygiene. Their nest was filthier than some wild animal dens. What did you actually find in the city? If you couldn't bear to deal with the monster spawn, and just called me over for that, all the credit for this battle is void. You joked with a hearty laugh. Guo Wushang shook his head quickly. Master, monsters eat people. They absolutely can't be allowed to live. Even the female monsters and the young in the lair, we've already cleared them all out. But, we found a strange glowing chest, and couldn't handle it. So we had to call you here. A glowing chest? Now you are truly curious. But more importantly, when we found it, we heard the voice that once led us to this world. He told us it was a reward for you, and requested that you open it yourself. Guo Wushang spoke rather incoherently, as he described everything he witnessed. You could tell the experience really shook him. It seems that for these people, the system's mysteries are like magical powers from legends. Anything ordered by the immortals is a huge deal. But after hearing it, you started having your own ideas. You hurriedly asked Guo Wushang to lead you to the chest, not caring about the stench in the goblin lair. When you finally reached the deepest part of the lair, most likely the throne room of the Goblin King, you immediately saw the chest the Goblin King used as his throne. Just as Guo Wuzhang said, it was glowing brightly. And in the system interface, there was an additional line of description. Nest treasure. Trophy from defeating the enemies of civilization. A treasure chest storing items prized by your foes. There is also a chance for bonus rewards. Claim it generously. It's rightfully yours. Remember, only the Lord System key can open it. No wonder Guo Wushang and the others couldn't manage it. It's exclusively for those chosen by the system. I really didn't expect something like this to show up. With a sigh to Guo Wushang, you said that voice was right. This thing really can only be opened by me. With that, you walked up and clicked confirm open in the system. The chest automatically opened in front of you, revealing loot shining with treasure light. The blueprints alone were amazing. Excellent grade blueprints require 1,000 units of wood, 500 units of stone, and 200 units of clay. It can be used to build a stylish fortress-style fence. It gives protection to everything and everyone within 500 meters in circumference. It provides protection. Units defending on this structure gain a basic impermanence arrow shield that nullifies standard ranged attack damage. Usable 3 times per day. Beast's Instinct. Fine quality one-handed sword. Power level +2. Speed level +2. Speed level +2. It has the special attribute, Beast Blood Boiling. At the cost of temporary weakness, you can double your power for 3 minutes after activation. Power doubled. Goblin King's Token Shard. Fine grade special item. A collectible from the Goblin King. Intimidates ordinary goblins with strong pressure. As a special item, faced with this token, any group of goblins with 10 or fewer numbers will let you do as you please. Sands of Time special item. A currency endorsed by the system. Usage not yet available. That was a surprise. Your eyes lit up, and a smile spread across your face. He originally thought that goblins wouldn't have anything good in their stash, but it turned out to be 3 awesome items, each unique. No need to say more about the blueprints. With these, the territory will have initial protection. No need for the engineering team to break their backs fixing the walls. Just finish public facilities like toilets directly. That would cut down the workload a lot. The weapon's special attributes sounded a bit scary, but the base stats were great.
As soon as he picked it up,
He felt like holding the sword gave him the strength of a mini Superman. To make sure it wasn't just his imagination, he even asked Guo Wushang to have an on-the-spot strength competition. Unexpectedly, Guo Wushang lost, and he swore he hadn't gone easy on him. This proves the +2 boost to power and speed really applies directly to the user's body, and it's a significant boost. So what are you waiting for? From now on, this sword is your go-to weapon. At least until you find something better. You're determined to keep Beast's Instinct for yourself. As for the Goblin King's Token Shard, since all the goblins were wiped out, there's no way to test its command ability on goblins for now. But judging by the system's description, it's still pretty interesting. Plus, it's marked as a shard, so there must be more pieces. What would happen if you collected them all? You're rather curious about that. So you toss it into your lord's personal space for temporary storage. As for the Sands of Time, they've become a new icon on your system interface. Sands of Time, 100. Based on previous explanations, it's a form of system currency. It should be useful someday. After you've stored all your loot, the treasure chest stopped glowing entirely and turned into an ordinary wooden box with a bit of rot left and a lingering stench of the Goblin King, as if its previous glory had never existed at all. With the loot gathered, this campaign has come to a perfect conclusion. You turned around and announced the successful end of the operation, ready to celebrate with the cheering Bo Wushang. When the citizens returned to the territory, the system broadcasted another world announcement. World announcement. Weixin tribe has successfully wiped out the nearby monster nest threatening the safety of civilization. achieved the world's first kill. Hereby, it's announced to the world for everyone to celebrate. The reputation system is now officially launched. Every quarter, special rewards will be given based on the rankings. Other chosen ones are encouraged to work even harder and ignite the great fire of civilization. After hearing the world announcement, you remain calm and composed. The system still does a good job protecting the privacy of the chosen ones. It won't casually reveal detailed information about the announcement's subject. It only serves as a reminder to all the chosen ones at certain key moments. Of course, that's just the current situation. No one knows if things will change in the future. Only one thing is certain. The system has always encouraged competition. The previous technology compendium could be considered as the Hall of Fame, using role models to motivate others to excel. Strive to develop new technologies and bring glory to one's own civilization. Now, with rankings enabled in the reputation system and the announcement of special rewards given based on those rankings, the competitive encouragement is shown loud and clear. Other chosen ones will definitely feel the pressure, trying every way to speed up development, especially now that you wiped out the monster nest and it's widely known. It also points out a short-term goal for everyone else. Now, a lot of chosen ones are likely to become more proactive and aggressive. A new wave of development is coming overall. But no worries. Relying on your golden ratio talent, you acquired the special fire source, Earthfire Black Gold, and even unlocked technologies like Wild Crystal Tree ahead of time. Others won't be able to catch up for a while. Your advantage is huge. Don't get too cocky, even if you're flying high. Reel it in a bit. In any case, you hold the core technologies, and you've eliminated threats to the territory's growth. The advantage is clear right now. You're ahead of the curve. Just keep it going. As for reputation, in another subcategory called camps, there's that blood-red goblin reputation hatred value. Are you really afraid of these greenskins? No wonder when the new search system function unlocked, you saw the chat icon blinking nonstop. When you opened it, Arctic Slacker, that guy had already sent quite a few private messages. No need to guess, they're all congratulating you, with all kinds of praise for clearing the monster nest near your territory. And while they're at it, asking for support, saying things like, for the sake of old customers, or help out a brother, etc. Tisk TSK, this guy really knows how to get in good with people. He sure knows when to jump on an opportunity. This guy's got a bright future. And as for the World Channel, that's even more obvious. Last time your Wetian tribe developed metallurgy and became the first one to log a technology in the compendium, it already caused a huge uproar. Now you're on the leaderboard again, and others are taking it a bit more calmly, especially since some analysts have pointed out that since Wetian tribe developed metallurgy, they've obtained metal tools. So getting metal weapons is highly likely, if not already certain. So taking out less advanced monsters with superior weapons is almost expected. No wonder it's not a surprise. That does make a lot of sense. So now, more people can view your achievements rationally. This latest world announcement makes more people want to buy metal tools and weapons. The demand is enormous. It's totally a seller's market. Absolutely spectacular. Unfortunately, after clearing out the goblin nest, a major obstacle to your territory's stable development was removed. The territory is definitely going to develop rapidly. More citizens to summon, more areas to build, and that means an even bigger shortage of tools. Even though Earthfire Black Gold is amazing, and the efficiency of smelting metals is high, that Waterfire is only so big. The output is just too limited. It's not even enough for your own use. Forget about supplying everyone else. Even Arctic Slacker's request. If he didn't supply you with urgent ores, you wouldn't have gotten even a little bit of metal tools. It all comes down to your civilization just starting out and simply not producing enough. Development is what really matters. Just as you're thinking about your next development plan, getting ready to head back and summon several hundred new residents, start large-scale development. With a few strong territory guards, When you reach the entrance of the goblin lair, Guo Wusheng rushes over with one of his men. This guy? Instead of bringing people to handle these goblin corpses and loot, what's he chasing after us for? Did something else happen? You look at the Lord in confusion. Lord keeps shouting. Guo Wusheng looks a bit off. After wiping out the goblin lair, the most important thing is the cleanup work. You can't just leave the corpses of these greenskins piling up here. Otherwise, it will definitely attract a lot of carnivores. If a creature even more dangerous than goblins shows up, you're screwed. Another concern is to avoid any outbreaks of plague. After all, he's the head of military affairs in the territory. Acting so flustered is not a good look. He puts on a stern face and casually tosses out a line, mainly putting on a show for others. Adds a bit of authority. After all, with his rosy lips and white teeth, young and handsome appearance, he looks more like a rich kid, rather than a lord. All these ordinary citizens summoned from countless worlds, most of the ordinary level residents summoned, tend to be pretty rigid thinkers. There's that old prejudice, young guys lack authority. The need for putting up an air of authority is still necessary sometimes. Otherwise, some of the ones with more peasant cunning might think you're too easygoing and try every trick to take advantage. Pulling strings, buying favors, boasting about their hard work, that kind of stuff. It's a source of trouble later on. It's not that. Most of the farmer-born residents are bad, but human nature always has a selfish side. Simplicity and cunning can exist together. It's not anything strange. Just need to be prepared. Bo Wusheng, who has experience in officialdom, knows better than the others to bow right away. Forgive me, Lord. I got a bit anxious. It's just that the new discovery is really important, so I had to disturb you. What new discovery? You were just putting on act, but you ask with real interest. We found coal. A big smile spreads across Guo Wucheng's face, beaming with joy. Your heart skips a beat. Coal is, well, simply coal. Up until 70 billion inhabitants of Blue Star crossed over, human civilization was still built on boiling water. The fuel changed from barrels and leaves in the beginning to, eventually, radioactive material. Coal is one type of fuel resource, one of the most important energy sources in human history, the lifeline for the first industrial revolution. Even after petroleum was discovered and widely used, it still had vast uses. And here for you, discovering a coal mine is a huge deal. With abundant quality coal, it nearly guarantees that metallurgy can be massively scaled up. He can't help but open the system interface, find the map, and opens the included appraisal function. Wherever he looks, he really sees a lot of places marked as coal resources. Why didn't he think of activating the eye of appraisal before? If he had, he wouldn't have needed Guo Wusheng to point it out. You feel a bit of lingering fear, thinking about how you'd regret missing this coal discovery. It would have been terrible. He glances at his personal dashboard. Sure enough, his golden green badge is shining bright. This is truly a mark of my incredible luck as Lord and unique talent. Let's go take a look. Everyone heads back to the goblin lair. But this time, they don't go toward the Goblin King's quarters. Instead, they enter a half-collapsed, abandoned cave left by the goblins. Apparently, those green-skinned creatures accidentally dug into a coal vein, but they didn't realize it's structurally unstable here, so it's prone to cave-ins. There's even toxic gases like methane. So they decided to abandon this mining direction. Lucky for you now, a resident who discovered the abandoned cave, led by Gao Wuxian, presents you with a chunk of pitch black ore. It's really coal. And it's actually pretty high quality. Images of steam locomotives fill your mind, the long whistle of turbines, the billowing smokestacks of factories. Easy there. Right now, you're still just trying to expand your smelting capacity. The industrial age is still a ways off. Don't get ahead of yourself. This is fantastic actual coal. With this stuff, we'll have furnaces reaching higher temperatures and fuel that's easier to obtain and burns longer. It will massively boost the territory's productivity. and raise the standard of living. Guo Wushang and everyone else are delighted too. After all, the territory's progress benefits them as well. Besides, you're a far more benevolent lord than any they've known, and a virtuous leader who cares for the people. They feel their efforts are appreciated, which is the highest reward. Finding coal is a huge win, but how to connect the goblin coal resources to the territory is going to be a headache. We might need to develop shipping. Guo Wushang cautiously shares his thoughts. Shaking his head, he says the stream outside does connect to the river, but it's too shallow. Even if you barely get a boat through, it won't carry much. If you really tried shipping coal on a large scale, it might eat up as much effort as carrying it by hand. What we should be developing is rail transport. This place really isn't far from the territory, about 10 li 5 kilometers or so. And while the jungle is dense, the terrain is pretty flat. Cut a path straight through, and pick up any wildlife along the way. We can expand our territory. Or just build a metallurgy base right here, and keep all related work here. If we build tracks here, it's going to be a big project. And with our current workforce, we simply don't have enough people. Building a base here? Still not enough people. Can't scale up. And just because the goblins are gone, doesn't mean it's safe around here. All kinds of wild beasts could cause headaches for our tribe. Bottom line, we lack manpower. Strength comes with numbers. You sigh, deciding to firmly stick with recruiting more residents and encouraging higher birth rates. The age-old belief that more children brings more fortune. Strength in numbers, that simple logic, is how a normal civilization operates. Artificial limits that go against basic rules are just the product of a few idiots or a plot by outside forces. With that sense of urgency, he can't linger anymore. He instructs Guo Wushang to lead a team to wrap up leftovers in the goblin lair, while he himself, escorted by several guards, heads back to the shelter while gathering resources. He resumes the hut construction that had to pause for 2 days, and the summoning of new residents. It's worth mentioning, with the increase in residents and upgraded tools, the rate of resource collection has been steadily climbing. Some resources, like certain special plant fibers, have even become surplus. These surplus resources can also be used by you for constructing system buildings. In fact, judging by the current situation, you're quite certain that in the foreseeable future, as the number of your subjects increases and the amount of resources gathered grows, sooner or later, you'll surpass the solo system user, who gathers all required resources for system buildings by themselves, and might even surpass many systems. In terms of resource collection and storage, in a sense, it's just a stockpile set aside for the chosen as backup supplies, not the main source for developing the territory. You suspect this design is probably meant for the chosen to fall back on when things get tough, so they can start over somewhere else. In other words, even the system thinks that even if the chosen manage to build a civilization, there's still a risk of it collapsing. The challenges ahead are evidently tough. This speculation motivates you to work even harder. He doesn't want to work so hard for so long, only to be knocked down by a sudden trial and forced to start over in tears after a miserable escape. In the days that follow, you gave it your all, putting all your energy into boosting the population. Since the goblin nest was wiped out, the surrounding environment is temporarily safe. Some of the subjects' jobs have also been adjusted, and they've been sent to help him collect various resources for building huts to speed up the population boom. On the 10th day of the newbie protection period, thanks to his frenzied building and summoning, the territory's population broke the 500 mark at once. That's actually quite a lot. Although compared to those who've summoned over 1,000 people, it seems a bit lacking in number. But in terms of quality, you can proudly say, except for those following the elite path, his subjects are among the best of all the chosen. Most who boast about huge numbers of subjects are just padding the count with low-quality ones, whether it's physical ability, intelligence, comprehension, obedience, or labor skills. Compared to his territory that uses ordinary-level recruits as the baseline, there simply can't compare. There's just no contest. However, increasing the population does indeed bring more pressure in every aspect. When it comes to exploiting low human rights, He really can't compete with those who use mostly low-quality recruits as their main strategy. Food, housing conditions, security, work assignment, public affairs management. Every one of these becomes a headache as population rises, and the trouble only increases. The demand for internal administration in the territory keeps climbing. Ordinary level subjects are mostly peasants, fishermen, or hunters. They lack an educational background. It's true they can take initiative in practical matters like the model family and take the lead when needed, but overall planning isn't their strong suit. He needs to build some elite-level huts and summon more talented people, which will require a wider variety of more complex resources. Trading with others is inevitable. After calculating over the past few days, the surplus resources discovered and gathered in the territory, plus the manufactured products, he feels there's still some leeway. So he opens the chat and enters the trade channel. The trade channel is always bustling. Even though everyone's landing environment is different, there are always at least some resources nearby for each chosen. Once you've established a shelter and unlocked a trading function, you can definitely use your local resources as bargaining chips and trade with others. But for most traders, the amount of resources they can offer is very limited. 1 unit, 2 units. Such small quantities are standard. Anything up to 10 units is considered a big order. Over 50 units counts as a bulk trade at this stage. Also, many posted for sale resources are in competing categories. For example, wood and stone are the most common. Lots of people are selling them. The only difference is the specific subtypes. Another similarity is that high-quality goods are rare, let alone legendary items like Geoflame Black Gold. Even purple quality items, or elite green grade goods, are in surprisingly short supply, and the prices are generally quite high. After all, everyone's broke at this stage. Even what you gather for yourself isn't enough to use. So what's traded is just whatever extra people can spare to earn a little extra. You're already an experienced trader and know exactly how things work. He also knows there actually are good products in the trading channel. And there's no shortage of goods either. It's just that many people can't afford to buy them, or they're going about it the wrong way. Fortunately, he has the ability. Channel broadcast. I stand irreconcilable with gamblers, accepting all types of high-quality materials. Priority is given to excellent or higher-level buyers. Salted beach fruit available. Spices, coal, metal tools, metal weapons, metal armor, and other goods. Interested in bartering? Message me privately. Limited quantities. Available until sold out. Spend some resources to submit to the system. 3 consecutive eye-catching pinned messages. Immediately. Attracted a lot of attention from chosen ones in the trading channel. Salted beach fruit? Oh my god. That's a luxury item. I've only seen it in the trading channel 3 times up until now. Looks like I don't have any salt resources over here. I can only trade with others. But most of what's sold now is raw salt, which is really bitter and astringent. That's because it's too expensive. There's just no way, even if you know how to make salt. Even those chosen ones at the seaside or salt lakes lack the tools, spend way too much time and effort, and can't fully process edible salt. The highest quality salt substitute available right now is salt soup fruit. It can also be used as a seasoning. After all, it's an affordable, excellent grade resource. I want to trade for some, but I barely have any resources to swap. What to do? This trading method is kind of like crowdfunding. You can apply to the system for a trade, even if you don't have much to offer. But when grouped together with similar resources, you can still get something in exchange. Someone gave it a try and was shocked by the exchange rate, exclaiming in the channel, "It's like the spice trade all over again, crazy profits." By the way, where does this irreconcilable with gamblers guy get so many rare items? Can't you tell? This boss is most likely the lord of the Vaishyan tribe. Right now, the only one who can mass sell metal items is the one with metallurgy, and that's him. Damn, it really is the Vaishyan tribe's boss. Boss. Newbie here, please take me under your wing. Don't count on that. You really think the civilization trial is just a game? It's already the 10th day of the newbie protection period. So take some responsibility for yourself. Prepare for survival seriously. Or you'll get knocked out after protection ends. A lot of people went silent. These days, many chosen ones have survived only because of the protection period, which is why no one has died yet. But now, as it's about to end, many people feel the threat of crisis looming, yet still don't have the power to solve it. So they're all panicking now. World channel, trading channel, private messages. Lately, people's chats are flooded with endless distress signals. There's this huge, invisible pressure weighing on every chosen one. Everyone knows, after the newbie protection is over, lots of tragic situations will probably happen. Unfortunately, the chosen ones just aren't strong enough. Even if some want to help, it's just not possible. Of course, while it's danger for some, it's opportunity for others. Many in safer environments, with more abundant resources, took the opportunity to drastically raise the prices of their goods and squeeze those chosen ones in worse environments, making a fortune in these conditions. Usually, other chosen ones are the ones upping the prices themselves. Like polar salty fish, who has been going all out to buy your coal and other resources lately. Even dropping their own prices, cutting the price of iron or way down, just to make sure you keep supplying enough. Of all your iron ore sellers, it's actually polar salty fish's mine that has the lowest price and the best quality. So you shed a tear and took up the offer, buying up a batch of high-grade ore. And on top of that, with his golden ratio lord talent lowering taxes, just this deal alone already made him a fortune. Invasion Tribe's goods aren't just coal. At the end of the day, raw materials only earn you sweat money. What really made you rich in this trade was selling metal products. With geothermal black gold, Vaishyan Tribe got access to steady, high-temperature flames, unlocking metallurgy, which is cutting-edge tech right now. But it was the discovery of the Goblin Nest coal deposits and the rise of more Oizi-wielding generals that really ramped up metal output. Especially the discovery and use of coal. Even though it's far inferior to geothermal black gold for smelting efficiency, it dramatically increased production scale and lowered the difficulty to manufacture. That's the reason in this trade, you could offer some metal products. Even though those metal products are poor quality, badly designed, and stupidly expensive, customers are still snapping them up. After all, productivity is key to strength. Metal tools and weapons massively boost work and defense, way better than stone tools or wooden weapons. They're just in another league. Now, with the protection period almost over, getting metal goods not only speeds up all your territory's projects, but could be your trump card when things go south. With all this in mind, when you listed the first auction item a sturdy axe, it instantly caused a bidding frenzy. Hey boss, I have 1 unit of excellent material, purified alum, which is essential for water safety. Should be enough to swap for an axe, right? Just 1 unit of material. I'll put up 5 units of gold.
Hey,
My purified alum helps prevent disease and ensures water safety. It's hygienic. 1 unit sounds small, but it actually purifies 100 tons of water. Not only does it last a long time, it also works for large groups. Compared to that, what actual use is 5 units of gold right now? I'm sure Vaishyan Tribe needs my material more. Don't underestimate gold. No matter where you are, gold is a rare resource and hard to come by. Too bad, you can't eat it when you're hungry, can't wear it when you're cold, and can't use it as medicine when you're sick. Maybe in the future, sure, gold will matter, but right now, practical materials matter most. Alright, enough arguing. 5 units each. And as for water bead sticks, they can also purify water. Plus, they're a bioactive resource, so they reproduce on their own, keeping an entire body of water clean to a pretty good degree. But those are premium resources. I need irreconcilable with gamblers to put up more stock. You immediately reply, fair prices only in my trades. Never cheat anyone. I'll throw in 2 more axes for you, brother. And I'll cover the system tax fees. Is that enough? This buyer is really straightforward. Not the slightest hint of resentment from being ripped off. Under the current circumstances, your metallurgy is basically high-tech. You're the only one with metal tools. Even if you don't want to increase the fire, I still have no choice but to trade. Now that you're willing to give 2 more, and even cover tax fees, I respect that. You really like these straightforward clients. You completed the deal with the other party efficiently. As for paying the system transaction tax yourself, it's because you get a discount with the golden rule. And he especially doesn't want to lose valuable resources like the pearl absorber in any way. But details like that don't need to be mentioned. As for purified water and alum, along with gold, he doesn't plan to miss out on either. The former is a big help for sanitation and epidemic prevention in the territory. And although metal products are gradually increasing, items like metal cookware are still very hard to make. And their priority isn't as high as tools and weapons. The pots brought by the nation can barely support a few hundred people. They're even boiling water in bamboo tubes and so on. With purified water and alum, they can produce large quantities of drinkable clean water. That solves the territory's urgent needs. The latter is considered a wealth reserve. Just as some people say, gold doesn't serve much purpose in today's harsh living conditions. That's true, but it's still a valuable resource. It will be useful in the future. For the heavenly tribe, lacking goods isn't an issue. Trading a little gold is just like handing over an axe. Similarly, if you pay the system tax for 2 selected individuals, compared to losing these precious resources, it's better for him to use some worthless resources from his own territory to deal with the system instead. The observing traders have no idea what's going on, and all admire his generosity. Some even start offering truly good things for trade. With a generous smile, you keep up your generous act. Your bold image and honest reputation, initially established, have reaped substantial rewards. Golden Namu wood, a high-quality variety among timber resources. When used for advanced wood processing, the value of the finished product increases even more. Unfortunately, the owner doesn't have the skills to process it himself, so he can only sell off large amounts in exchange for things like salt, grain, and metal tools. Dawn wheat, an excellent grade food resource. Even more importantly, it's a premium seed with a long growth cycle, low yield, and low land requirements. Once the barn was built, the rice and wheat seeds gifted by the system were just ordinary grade varieties. With Dawn wheat, it's easy to see the territory's food production will greatly increase. Calligraphy cows and disguised sheep are both top-quality resource animals. The former not only provides plenty of milk, good for making dairy products, but also serves as excellent beef cattle. The latter is also an excellent meat source and provides dense, high-quality wool. They're truly rare and valuable finds. Nightheart grass is an herb with wonderful anti-inflammatory effects. In this environment, it's a crucial medical resource. Even if it's priced a little higher, it's not to be missed. Moonstone, eastern raccoon, and black tree poison. From raw materials to biological resources, from bulk materials to special herbs, with 7 billion earthlings scattered across a limitless trial land, there are always amazing things to offer. In the end, you've traded away all the goods you prepared, but selected individuals keep coming, drawn by your reputation, bringing all sorts of astonishing products, hoping to make a deal. To maintain your image,
He really had to work hard.
to restrain his own greed. He politely informed everyone that production capacity is limited, and all merchandise has already been exchanged. There really is nothing left in stock. Everyone, come earlier next time. Even though he traded a bunch of inferior metal goods for many great things from others, making a big profit, others actually owe him a favor. If business can reach this level, he really had the aura that Jack Ma had before his reputation went downhill. But what truly amazed him was a certain secret he learned in a private chat. I can't believe there's such a wild tactic. Respected leader of the Vaitian tribe, I am sworn enemies with the gambler. Sir, I wonder if you're interested in offering a bit of modest help. to a lady in distress and rescuing her from a miserable situation. In return, this lady will share with you a secret known only to a select few for now, and she's willing to pay you handsomely. I promise you won't be disappointed. If you're interested, please reply and let me know. If all it was just a cryptic private message like this, you wouldn't pay it any mind. At most, you'd think some unlucky soul was trying to squeeze some benefits out of you. But along with that message, there was also a racy, heart-pounding artistic photo. And the star of the photo was a beauty once fantasized about by men all over Blue Star. Curiosity instantly gripped him like a devil's temptation. So he replied, "Ma'am, I honestly didn't expect to receive a message from you, let alone one with such exhilarating photos attached. But this scenario also makes me suspicious. I don't know what you mean by this. If we were still on Blue Star, this would either be a scam, or still a scam. Because women like her, celebrities, would never cross paths with him. But after being dropped into this trial land, someone who can produce such a photo definitely took it on the spot. It's impossible to fake. You can't swap people either. So it must be her real self talking to him. That's why you were so shocked. With survival pressure this high, everyone is preparing for the imminent end of their newbie protection period, getting ready for what's to come, yet still bothering with this kind of half-hearted baiting. Whether she's trying to tease or tempt some complete stranger like him, it doesn't make sense." A reply came very quickly. "I'm glad you reached out to me. I am sworn enemies with the gambler, sir, and your response does ease my anxious heart. As for your doubts, I'm honored to explain. I've had enough of this awful situation, and I know very well that relying only on myself, it'll be very hard to survive after the newbie protection period ends. I probably can't make it on my own, so I need to change my situation. Let's put life on pause for a second." The life of the unlucky, heartbroken king just got rougher. You never let your lower half overrule your brain. He cut to the chase. "If you're hoping to get something from me for free, then I have to tell you that's just not possible. It's tough for anyone in these circumstances." Surprisingly, her answer was very straightforward. "I have no such intention. I'm well aware that getting something for nothing is the world's biggest lie. Gifts from fate always have a hidden price tag. So are you planning to use that secret to get resources from me?" If she really had a secret he didn't know, that could bring him real benefits. He'd actually be willing to offer some help as payment. "No, I don't want resources. What I need is a qualification." The lady on the other side explained, "I hope that once you know this secret, you'll give me this qualification." Saying this, she sent over an email. After opening it, you were shocked to find it was actually a contract. No, it was basically a slave contract. This is the very secret I wanted to tell you. Under the system's witness, I've already voluntarily signed my name. All you need is to accept it, and I can become your loyal servant, body and soul. From now on, both are under your control." You glanced over the contract and instantly understood what her secret was. But it all seemed absolutely absurd.
How?
Could the system even allow this to happen? Surprisingly, she responded, "Of course the system allows this kind of deal. It's one of the system's hidden mechanics. Think of it this way. If sentient beings all across the multiverse can accept contracts and become subjects to a lord, then why can't one lord become another lord's servant voluntarily? There's nothing disallowed about that." Yes, that's exactly the big secret she meant. As long as someone chosen volunteers, they can actually give up being a lord. The catch? They become someone else's servant. The essence of this hidden rule is that the chosen give up their independence and become someone else's subject, that's all. This secret has already become trendy in some small circles. Among people I know, someone's already done this. But I look down on those former so-called elite types. In their old world, they were only successful because they held social power, rigging the rules in their favor, and manipulating and deceiving the masses. Now, in this survival of the fittest world, They're still trying to use the old tricks. Absolutely clueless. But you're different. You're the kind of person who can get a head start even in the opening stage. That's what makes you a real powerhouse in this world. And you're smart and rational, with plenty of vision. I believe in your potential. That's why I'm selling myself to you. You frowned. He got the logic. In this information explosion age, some of the dark stuff was something even ordinary people had heard rumors about. But it was the first time an insider just dropped it like this. She joked, "But you don't lean toward men, do you? How could this possibly be about your orientation?" You almost jumped. It's just taking some getting used to. This transaction is just way too blatant. So I'm having a hard time accepting it. You'll get used to it, she answered with a smile. Society has never been innocent, and people's hearts are even more complicated. A lot of the darkness out there is far nastier than you could ever imagine, even bloody. But before, you just didn't have the power or qualifications to step into that world. Now you do. Welcome to society's most authentic side. Time to break your naive illusions. Looking at the alluring photo she sent again, that beauty that once made every man swoon was now entirely on display just for you. So seductive. Completely at your mercy. You sighed. So incredible, and yet so real. No need to send any more. I accept. The contract is established. Contract signed. Daenerys Targaryen walked out from a swirling gate of light, much like the one Li Ming summons, and appeared right before your eyes. For a moment she still felt unreal. This woman who was once extremely popular, fantasized about by men all over the world, was obviously carefully made up. Even though conditions were so tough right now, it's impossible to be as refined as back on Blue Star. But still, I strive for perfection. But it's all to leave the best first impression on myself, to show off my best features as much as possible, and to counter the seldom seen, truly bold personas, fiercely competitive and ruthless. Yet she still puts on that look she had on the screen, that cool and seductive aura when she charmed everyone. Not only does it remind people of the roles she played, it also stirs up a very strong desire to conquer in men. It's obvious. He's serious about playing the servant role. The hardship of these days has really been enough for this former goddess. It doesn't matter who stands before him, whatever their age or their background, as long as they can get him out of this misery, he's willing to give anything. So when he saw you, he was only surprised for a moment, and then dutifully climbed onto his arm, acting like an old acquaintance, gently stroking the back of the man's hand. The ever-respectful Lord Daenerys has come at your summons. How do you plan to arrange his schedule next? Will you warmly give him love and comfort, or will you punish his arrogance and stubbornness? You zone out a bit. Suddenly, you understand that statement from some Sea King. Don't pedestalize women. No matter how goddess-like they act, they're just people weighing pros and cons inside. It's not that women won't make the first move. They just won't take the initiative for men who offer them nothing. Power, money, fame, sex, emotional value. They like all those too. As long as you have them, never be a simp. You'll end up with nothing that way. Your previously excited mind suddenly calms down. Getting frisky now would only let this woman secretly feel smug. And once a person gets smug, they bring themselves a lot of trouble. Since you think so highly of me, and have given up your lord position to join me, I need to see your sincerity and ability. You pause. Then ask, do you still have your system functions? Daenerys looks a bit surprised. She didn't expect you to break free from her allure so quickly. Even though she isn't at her prime right now, she's at her most mature and tempting. Given her fame, even the most arrogant guys would be drooling. But this big guy actually held back. The woman, not wanting to challenge your authority, replies honestly, as your follower, the system stripped me of my lord status and blocked a lot of functions, but some are still retained. For example, I can talk with you in team chat or in buddy chat channels. I still share the map and other features with you. It just needs your permission. Also, my Lord talent hasn't been taken away. It's just been downgraded one level. Now it's a follower talent. It went from blue quality down to green. Excellent. Overall, by giving up my independence, Daenerys has taken a serious downgrade, which in some sense could be seen as the system's punishment for someone like Daenerys quitting as a chosen one. It's a punishment, making her lose her freedom as an individual and turning her into a vassal controlled by her master from now on. Whether her future is good or bad, it all depends on the master's conscience. I'm not a bad guy, and I don't have any twisted idea to torment Daenerys to death. I just need Daenerys to give me her loyalty. That's enough. So, what's your follower talent? Daenerys hesitates for a moment, then answers, "It's Mother of Dragons." You're shocked and look at her. Explain in detail. Daenerys sighs. In some ways, it's a lot like the role I used to play. I can be unharmed by fire, raise dragons, and make them obey me. A pretty powerful ability. But there are no dragons. Daenerys says, frustrated. The most important part of this ability is needing a dragon for me to raise. But I've searched around the territory for a long time, and I haven't found any trace of dragons at all. As for not getting burned by fire, my previous territory was in a gloomy swamp. What's the point? This talent is basically useless. Now you sort of get it. Her starting location was too bad. Her Lord talent is basically disabled, and she's not used to the harsh environment. Anyway, it's just plain bad luck. It hit this woman way too hard. She really couldn't take it anymore, so she tried to sell herself to the most suitable potential candidate. And that's him, Lord Luo. It's truly a sad story, one that makes his tears flow from the corners of his mouth. He took a quick look at his personal panel. The golden ratio talent didn't flash. It seems it wasn't his doing. The result was simply that Daenerys was truly too unlucky. He understood that this was indeed very deserving of sympathy. He said to Daenerys, "By the way, where are your subjects?" According to the description of the contract, it is assumed that after a lord voluntarily becomes a vassal of another lord, they lose their lord status. The system buildings within the territory are automatically destroyed, and the subjects will also change. The lord they serve. Daenerys shrugged. I don't have any subjects. Your mouth hung open in surprise. Daenerys sighed. Otherwise, why did you think I would give up my lord status so easily? It's really because my environment was too poor. I couldn't develop at all. Not only were there many monsters roaming the swamp, terrifying beyond belief, but building a shelter already used up all my resources. I simply couldn't build any more system buildings. You could say, once the novice protection period ended, I was the type that was definitely going to die. You thought about it and agreed. Although becoming a chosen one brings incomparable hardships, it also broke various social systems that existed on Blue Star. Everyone got a chance to stand at the same starting line, with an immeasurable future. Unless there was truly no other way. Absolutely, few people would be willing to give up everything to become someone else's servant. By the way, I need to remind you of one thing. You must be careful of the organization called the City Upon a Hill. Daenerys finished lamenting her own misery, and then something came to mind. Wiping away her previous flirtatious look, she said to you seriously, City Upon a Hill is a secret organization composed of the former elites of the United States. Daenerys' expression was somewhat complex. Then she said frankly, it was they who discovered the system's hidden operations and used this operation to gather together again, aiming to integrate the power of the United States, to continue the power and influence of the Blue Star era. You were surprised, not expecting to receive such explosive news. Discovering hidden system functions, that chosen ones can sign servant contracts, and that people had already colluded to form an organization. But thinking about it carefully, even if the system had no hidden functions, after arriving at the trial grounds, such a god-awful place, those familiar with organizational power would try everything to band together. Just like himself, did he not know there's strength in numbers? Or that mutual cooperation is more conducive to development? Of course he knew, but he couldn't find suitable people to band with. As an orphan, He couldn't count on family at all. Schoolmates and such had long been forgotten in the world, not to mention work colleagues. Supervisors were afraid of subordinates uniting to overthrow them, playing office politics one after another, like some palace drama. It was considered decent if they didn't stab you in the back. As for finding other strange candidates, many people either acted like arrogant fools, who thought they were better than everyone else, or were overly suspicious types who simply couldn't trust others, trusting only themselves, or refined egoists who only wanted to gain benefits from others, without giving a single penny. Uniting and banding together? They were a heap of loose sand. Unite my ass. The result was that he couldn't rely on anyone, and could only rely on himself. Fortunately, not only did he survive, but he's also living quite well currently. Incidentally, he used trade secrets to control Arctic salted fish and other candidates. In a sense, it could be considered a small achievement, forming a relatively loose implicit alliance. How did you know all this? You were quite wary of the city upon a hill, a former national-level force attempting to use its past influence for integration, though facing many obstacles. The possibility of forming a powerful force was much higher than that of ordinary people. He had to ask clearly about the situation. He needed Daenerys to tell him everything she knew. Daenerys had no intention of hiding anything. She told you, to boast a little, those of us who made a name for ourselves before always have some influence left. Even in the trial grounds, we can use this influence to get more help than average people. I've received support from some fans. Otherwise, I couldn't even have built a shelter. People like us with such influence, to an organization like City Upon a Hill, are clearly targets worth winning over. I have a friend who, under the personal invitation of a once unreachable big shot, decided to join and tried to lobby me, letting me know about the system's hidden options and the existence of the City Upon a Hill. In that case, why did you refuse the invitation from City Upon a Hill and choose to sell yourself to me instead? Obviously, the potential of such an organization is much stronger, right? You narrowed your eyes, asking a very important question. Daenerys gave a cold laugh, not directed at you, but at those former big shots. Because they are unreliable. My friend only saw those former big shots of the United States, trying to reconstruct the glorious ambition of the nation, thinking they have influence and strength, and that joining them would lead to a brilliant future. But he didn't stop to think. The big shots of the United States already formed a monolithic group back in the Blue Star era. A grassroots person like him, and most a bit pretty. With a few fans, what kind of status could he have by joining? The most likely outcome is that after his value is used up, just like the ordinary people of that country, he'll be discarded like trash from the sight of the upper class. And this time, unlike back in the Blue Star era when one could at least cry to the media and seek help from the public. Now, because of the existence of the servant contract, life and death are entirely at the whim of those big shots. Then aren't you worried that I might be just as ungrateful? You asked her with interest. But Daenerys turned to look at you and said very bluntly, "Of course I'm worried. But compared to those with deep foundations, who are used to treating others as pawns, a new noble like you will always have a bit more humanity. I have observed many of your actions, and feel that you are someone worth being loyal to. I will serve you with all my heart, pleasing you with everything I have, betting that my fate with you will be better than with the City Upon a Hill." You laughed out loud. He liked Daenerys' frank statement. She clearly stated her speculative thoughts, yet was willing to be down to earth, using actions to prove her value. This was enough to show she was a very intelligent woman. This is extremely important. Very good, I acknowledge you now. You said this to Daenerys. But now you are my subordinate. Follower Loop, I still need to push you, to make you use your abilities, to contribute to the prosperity of the territory. I'm just a weak and helpless woman. Daenerys clings to your arm again. Her expression is pitiful, yet full of temptation. It looks like she's being coquettish. But in fact, she's testing the man's mind. You finally matured. You remain unmoved and calmly respond. But you received a modernized education on Blue Star. In this savage world, your knowledge is also a valuable asset. You can contribute to the prosperity of my territory. Daenerys gave a self-mocking smile. My knowledge? Acting or knowing how things really work behind the scenes? With a straight face, she talks about basic literacy and math skills. Most of my subjects come from underdeveloped ancient worlds, with backgrounds as farmers and craftsmen. They seriously lack basic cultural knowledge, including keeping records and doing calculations. Many of them are not good at that. They need help. This kind of work isn't hard or complicated. You're definitely capable of doing it. But Daenerys realized you were actually being serious. She couldn't help but open her mouth in surprise. She almost asked if something was wrong with you. You have such a world-class beauty offered to you on a silver platter. You aren't happy? Black Bear. Instead, you want to send her off to do clerical work. What kind of logic is that? But after her initial shock, she had to admit that being heroic isn't really a flaw. Only those with true courage have true resolve, able to control themselves and focus on what's most important. Someone like that is actually even more formidable than she imagined a licher would be. Anyone who makes it to the top is never simple. But Daenerys really could let go of her goddess persona, set aside her looks as a beauty, and actually went to do clerical work. She even made sure to wrap herself up quite modestly, to put her master's mind at ease, showing she only ever be her master's adorable maid who is pleasant to look at and serve. Everything was handled with such care. Amid your surprise, you also felt some admiration for this woman. She knew when to advance and when to retreat, something many men can't do, yet she could. But Lord Rowe wasn't really making things difficult for Daenerys. The territory just truly lacked talent. The Vitton tribe's domain is basically a giant construction site right now, with all aspects being developed. Although Guo Wushang and others were working hard to maintain everything, they've already reached the limit of their abilities. The construction blueprint for the primitive palisade had just started. Once it's fully completed, the small hill where the shelter is will be protected by this high-grade building, with all the shacks on the hill. From a distance, it will look like a primitive version of Kowloon Walled City. Crude in appearance, but it will be a vital line of defense against various unexpected attacks after the newbie protection period ends. But these kinds of wild blueprints dropped outside aren't part of the system's standard building set. The system will only project a 3D image for guidance, leaving it up to the Lord's subjects to figure things out on their own. Once construction is complete, the system then gives it special functions. Due to a lack of architectural specialists and no main commander, the subjects involved in this project can only discuss among themselves, working together to build it. Many people have been losing handfuls of hair lately because of this, and progress is still slow. The military group led by Guo Wushang has already expanded into a 50-person guard team, becoming the permanent force of the territory. Yet manpower is still tight. What's worse, there's a severe shortage of qualified junior officers and people who can organize operations. Besides guarding the settlement, the guard team needs to establish plans to clear the wild animals nearby. Which fierce beasts need to be driven off? Which harmful animals need to be hunted? Which docile, herbivorous animals can serve as backup food reserves for the livestock pens? For safety reasons, a team still needs to be sent out every day to provide escort and protection for each work crew. Liang Shan led the agricultural team and has already cleared quite a bit of farmland around the settlement. The area is so large it's reaching the edge of the forest. It's important to guard against wild beasts attacking people. Willie leads the construction crew. They've begun building residential areas around the settlement to ease population pressure and improve the residents' living conditions. Their work area is also expanding toward the forest's edge. At the lumberyard, a resident named Wan Liliang is leading the charge, directly cutting down trees inside the forest, collecting wood and other resources. If no one is assigned to protect them, they might just get snatched away by things like forest wolves, even more dangerous than what Liang Shan and Willie are facing. Even those assigned to care for the salt-flat fruits, like Lang Tianliang's brother, still need to watch out. As time goes by living here, some discovered there are big crocodiles in the river. They latch onto animals near the riverbank and never let go, dragging them straight into the water. Then, at the old goblin lair, a metallurgy base has now been established. Not only are there mining crews working, but valuable artisans are also busy there, crafting tools and weapons. How could you not station an armed team for protection? There's also the road crew, who have always used manual labor to supply the shelter camp with coal and other resources. The cost is just way too high. The roads connecting the goblin lair, coal mine, and the shelter camp still need to be built no matter what. There are all kinds of dangers in the wilderness and jungle along the way. They must be guarded, one issue after another. Almost all fall under the guard's responsibilities. The merchant is nearly driven crazy by all these complex tasks, not to mention in other specific projects. They're lacking talent everywhere. Even if you've already utilized every skilled person in the territory, all you can do is barely keep things running. Problems pop up from time to time. If you add any more burden, the management system might totally collapse. That's why Danny and Lisi are being worked hard by you like corporate slaves, instead of being kept in a room for your entertainment. It's just too short on talented people. Fortunately, you're working on solving this problem. Much of the high-quality materials gained from this trade are specifically for building high-quality cabins, to prepare for summoning high-quality residents. As several excellent grade cabins are completed, a colorful whirlpool portal begins to appear. The first stabilized portal is emerald green. Judging by past experience, it's roughly an S2 in the green tier. This rare portal brings out a family of 3 zombies from the late Western Jin period, brought here because of the chaos of Yongjia. They signed on to the Weixin tribe through the system during the turmoil. After asking, you find out the craftsman is quite skilled in construction matters. You are overjoyed and immediately send him off to the wild fence construction site. It can be seen as a relief for those residents who are about to scratch themselves bald from stress. The second stabilized portal is dark green. The rarity is SSR. Compared to the SSR with Guo Wushang is the kind with a gilded edge. This one doesn't have that. Maybe a bit weaker. And sure enough, a refugee warrior from the Jinkang incident at the end of the Northern Song. In terms of both status and skills, he's quite a bit inferior to Guo Wushang. After sparring with Guo Wushang, he casually asked what exactly happened at Jinkang, and learned that the descendants of Gao Liyang and the car god messed around. As a result, most of the royal family was captured by foreign tribes and sent off to the wilderness. He couldn't help but curse repeatedly, saying he'd always known that Zhao Tu was no good. Never expected that the loser's descendants would bring such shame, completely disgracing Guo Wei, Chai Rong, Zhao Da, and the 3 great rulers. How could such a promising new dynasty that ended the chaos end up being taken over by such cowards? But you suspect this guy may also be motivated by his personal grudge against Zhao Tu for sending people to hunt down his family, taking the opportunity to vent. The third regular green whirlpool portal is just an S card, only a notch above the light green N card. The newcomer is an old scholar, but with a big family, a total of 8 people. The reason they signed with the system was that his 3 sons were all drafted by the government to put down the Anshi rebellion. All were killed in action, leaving the whole family as widows and orphans, yet still burdened by heavy taxes. If they can't pay, even his 13-year-old grandson would be drafted. This would wipe out his whole family line. The old man agreed to the system's offer with barely any hesitation. Luckily, the entire family has received at least some schooling. Though their abilities might be lacking, they're all literate, which is already great help these days. Without hesitation, send them all to Lord Luo. Let them contribute their strengths wherever needed. But it's the 4th portal that really excites you. It's a green portal with a blue edge, same grade as Guo Wushang, both considered gilded SSRs. Judging by Guo Wushang's competence, whoever comes out shouldn't be lacking. But once the person emerges, Lord Luo is shocked.